Good morning, and welcome to the 4th Annual Athens Area Women's Summit, streaming live from Stuart's Opera House in historic Nelsonville, Ohio. I'm Dani Underhill, and president of the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce, and the chair of the Women's Summit Planning Committee. On behalf of the committee, chamber staff, and event organizers, I would like to thank you for taking time to connect with us as we step in, reach out, and lift up during today's event. Like so many of you, the Planning Committee was faced with arduous decisions as the pandemic unfolded, like if, when, and how we could even plan this event. Is there a place for it? Will it be too much? Too meaningful? How? For those who have attended in the past, you know this event to be full of energy, connections, place, and purpose. And we knew as we began to plan that we would be faced with so many challenges. You have no idea. We thought we would be competing with so many meetings, Zoom meetings, go-to meetings, webinars, professional development, the list goes on and on. Not to mention the fact that we have packed agendas, limited resources, emotional tolls, and the weight of this world on our shoulders. But we knew that because of some of those challenges, that we were called to provide this space to recharge, reconnect, and renew ourselves and the participants, new and old. Now, before we really get into the day, I would be remiss to not take a moment and acknowledge the challenging year that we have all faced. And in that same vein, I ask you to join me in observing a moment of silence to reflect on the last 10 months of our lives. Thank you. Now to the list of thank yous, because we really could not pull this event off without so many businesses and individuals. And I know that speeches like this feel like the Oscars, where after winning that beautiful trophy, they get up there with a laundry list of people from their dog groomers to the postal service. And while those folks are really important, it can get a little bit much. But I really want to take a moment to highlight the people who made this event possible. To start, I would like to welcome the Athens Area Summit Planning Committee. Please, everyone, hold your applause till the end. Tammy Bobo, Hocking Valley Bank. Chris Cornwell, Personal Jeweler. Tara Giltz of Ohio Health. Dr. M. Geneva Murray of Ohio University Women's Center. Michelle Ostrike of Jackie O's Brewery. Aaron Rennick of Ohio University Innovation Center. Bailey Schooner of Career Connections. Polly Sumney of Hocking Valley Bank, and Don Worley-Sims of the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce. Now, as the new president and the new chair to this committee, coupled with the pandemic, I cannot exaggerate the importance of this group of strong and powerful, smart and authentic women and the importance they were to me and to the success of this event. And I really can't say it better than my predecessor did, so I'll use her words. Thank you all, truly, for stepping in and lending your creativity, your guidance, your advice, and knowledge to make this day happen. I also want to take a moment to genuinely thank our sponsors, who without their support and confidence, this event couldn't happen either. Once again, our premier sponsor, Ohio Health. Our ticket sponsor, Hocking Valley Bank. Our Uplift sponsor, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. Our session sponsors, Air Claws Heating and Cooling, Precision Imprint, Quidel, and Susan Bargy of the Athens Real Estate Company. And our supporting sponsor, Athens Eye Care. Thank you for your contributions and continued support during such times. Next, I'd like to thank our speakers for taking time, reaching out, and sharing their experience and their knowledge with us today. Jenny Stotts of Athens Casa Gal, Jenn Bennett from WellWorks, Jen Murphy of Ohio University College of Business, Dr. M. Geneva Murray of Ohio University Women's Center, Rachel Siegel of Siegel Transformations at Rock Riffle Wellness, That was tough. And Mary Catherine Tran from Ohio University Women's Center. Special thanks goes out to Hocking Valley Bank for our ticketing sponsor, which allows you to take part in this meaningful event for free this year. Precision Imprint for the sweet masks, oh yeah, that you guys all got in your gift bag. Kristen Frank Slimmer for not only designing the beautiful program that you got, but also for stepping in to create some amazing artwork and graphics that you'll see through today's event. Brent Armel of Stuart's Opera House for coordinating all of this space and bringing this event to life. And special thanks to T-Bone and Mike of Stuart's Opera House and Kevin Price for their expertise, all things tech, to bring our virtual dreams to life. And we couldn't do this without our volunteers for the day, who will be assisting in a myriad of ways. Tara Giltz of Ohio Health, Hannah Kilbride of Athens Meg's ESC, Aaron Rennick of Ohio University Innovation Center, Bailey Schooner of Career Connections, and Polly Sumney of Hocking Valley Bank. And finally, I would like to thank Dawn Worley-Sims, my right-hand woman and Director of Operations at the Chamber, for your assistance with every harebrained idea, errand, task, and the unfailing support now and always. Now, a little bit of housekeeping information. And here's the thing, guys. I had 3 pages to tell you about how today's conference was going to go. And ultimately, thanks to technology challenges that I know we all face, they're gone. So instead of bouncing between Zoom meetings and breakouts, everything is going to happen in today's stream that you're on currently. So that first YouTube stream that traditionally was just going to be used for the welcome, we will now be using to actually bring to you a few of our speakers live on this stage. Now, this isn't the way that the planning committee planned for this event, but as unexpected things come up, we know we're all walking through this together for the first time. So we are actively behind the scenes figuring out which of our speakers we're going to bring to this stage and which ones that we're still going to record and make available for future content. And while we hoped that this whole experience would be extremely interactive with you, unfortunately, technology came up and reared that head, and we're coming up with our best solutions, as we all do in every day-to-day operations with your family and your work and your home. And I want to tell you that I appreciate the time that you're taking with this and the fact that you're going to walk through this and be adaptable with us as everything is changing behind the scenes. I want to take a time to special shout out to everybody here on site at Stuart's who are working diligently to bring this together in a super professional way. Now, speaking of professional, as you notice, I'm on this beautiful stage at Stuart's, and we did that on purpose to bring you this sense of place and feeling that we all connected with last year. It also allows us to be super professional, thanks to the guys behind the scenes that you can't see. So not only do I have this sweet mic, I've got the whole stage to myself, but I also get these sweet camera shots. And thanks to these guys for making us look really good. Now, there is going to be 15-minute breaks between each of our sessions, so the timing is still the same. You will get to see our first speaker come onto the stage at 10 a.m., and after I'm done here, there's going to be a small break of about 15 minutes, and that's perfect time to get up and refill your coffee, grab that mimosa, maybe let the dog out, run to the loo, take the phone call, whatever you need to do. No judgment. But use those breaks. And if you don't need to get up and you don't want to do anything around your home, know that we have content based for those 15 minutes. So you can look for movement breaks, thanks to our partners at WellWorks. There'll be some trivia that you can participate in and maybe in your own mind see if you know some of this women's trivia. There's also some other sponsored content from our partners that we'll continue to bring to you live. And then the second session will be at 11:15 as scheduled, just here from this stage. And finally, our keynote, Jenny Stotts, at 12:30 will bring to you the art of doing it all, which we tried to do today, and I think we did all right. So I hope that you are patient and understanding as we continue through this path and be extremely adaptable and humorous in the times that we may trip and stumble, but get back up and continue moving forward. The planning committee hopes that you have, well, we hoped for conversation, we hoped for connections. And in light of all of the changes, I hope that you're able to walk away knowing that we're all in this together and we are all walking this path of uncertainty that we can't see the end. But ultimately, we're sharing in this experience together and we'll walk away stronger for it.
My name is Jenn. I am a Ohio University student studying computer science. I work at WellWorks as a personal trainer. And my job as a personal trainer is to meet people wherever they are in their fitness journey and ensure they have the tools and techniques that they need to get where they want to go. Join me now for some quick, low-impact exercises. So for this one, you're going to do 15 rotations, rest 5 seconds, and repeat for 3 total sets. Direction is not specific, so you can rotate forwards or backwards, whichever one feels better to you. Really focus on opening up the shoulder, squeezing the shoulders at the top up to the ears, and a slow movement and rotation throughout. You will perform this exercise in 3 sets of 10 on, 10 off, or 10 seconds work, 10 seconds rest. If for some reason you can't do a regular jumping jack, or just don't feel like it, 2 alternatives are the split jack, where your legs are moving forward and back instead of out and in, and the side step jack, where you simply step out and remove the bounce. This is great if you don't think that your knees can handle the impact of jumping. Moving on, we're going to do a side lunge. For this one, do 10 reps each leg, rest 10 seconds, twice, for a total of 2 sets. You also can complete the reps in order, or alternate legs as shown here. Go as low as is comfortable while still maintaining good stability and a straight back. Here's a view from the side. Notice how I'm keeping my foot flat on the ground and keeping my center of gravity over the center of my foot. Those 2 details will give you perfect functional form and great stability. Next up is the bent over twist. Go 10 on, 10 off, 3 times for a total of 3 sets. The big pointer for this one is to try and keep a straight line from hand to hand. Now granted, if you don't have the best flexibility like me, keeping your arms in line when you go down is going to be pretty tough, so if it's a little off, don't sweat it. Just focus on opening up the core and stretching the lower back. Awesome work! If you'd like to see my full video, along with a whole library of on-demand WellWorks content, visit our member portal page. And if you'd like a personal trainer like myself, feel free to fill out the personal trainer request form on the former. Life's a journey. Let us help you get there.
Cool. Oh, there it is. Tell me when I should go. Live? All right. Hi, everybody. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jenn Murphy, and welcome to an amazing event about to happen. I'm the first speaker, and just rolling with this technology where that's what we're doing now. So anyway, now I'm live, and we're going to talk about coaching for confidence, the role of intersectionality in a woman's career path. Before we go there, just to give a little bit of context of who I am, I'm Jenn Murphy, and I work at Ohio University as the Assistant Vice Provost. For those Athens connections, I have a son who's a 10th grader and a daughter who's an 8th grader. And also, I would like to say thank you to Dani Underhill, who is an incredible leader behind the scenes. You should see all of the things she's managing right now. So a special thank you to Dani for getting this important event kicked off today. Also thanking the Athens Women Chamber and the committee that did everything to get this going. I love this event. I have spoken at it a couple different times, and I don't know, I'm a big fan. So that's my introduction, and here we go. So you should be able to seize my slides in and out, and we're just going to kind of roll with it, and I will take Q&A at the end. I have a lot of cool things to talk about here, and it's going to be some vulnerability. There's going to be some storytelling, and I'm going to trust that you are, I'm just going to trust that you'll appreciate it. All right, so let's go a little bit further into who Jenn Murphy really is. Ready? Okay, so I am the Assistant Vice Provost at Ohio University. I already mentioned that. My background is I've spent 17 years in higher education. I always say that I went to college to be in college forever, so I win, right? So I spent time at Indiana University, Arizona State University, and most recently at American University in Washington, D.C. Then I came to Athens, Ohio. And I always pause there for people to be like, are you okay? How's it going? And it's great. It's just a huge change from DC to Athens, and I love this town, and I've come to really adopt it as my own. So I have spent a lot of time working in career and professional courses, building on MBAs, MS students, undergraduate business students. I've spent the past 5-6 years in the College of Business, and recently have been promoted to the Provost's office. I love strategy. I love building and leading teams and people and processes and technology. I love new initiatives. I have an entrepreneurial soul, and I just want to build things. That's exciting to me. So you already know what I'm currently doing. I'm working on a student success initiative for the entire university, which is equal parts exciting and terrifying. I also work as a careers consultant at the University of Cambridge, the Judge School of Business, so I go to the UK twice a year. Not this year, though. I also am a global presenter, and I do all this stuff on meaningful work and narrative and women in leadership. And finally, I am a doctoral candidate at the University of Pennsylvania. It is a 2-year program, and I graduate in May, and I will have a doctorate degree. Now, the reason why I tell you all that, and I don't know if you can see my screen, but the words that I'm about to say is imposter. I just gave you my introduction, and I gave you all the badass things that I wanted you to hear about me. But in reality, the reality is this. Behind every single one of those bullet points, every single one of those talking points that I just said to you, every single one, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Oh my God, they're going to realize I'm a fraud. There's no way that I can do this. I can't get into a doctorate degree. I can't go off and work for Cambridge. I'm not going to get promoted. I can't do this. I have imposter syndrome so bad, and I think that many of you might have had that here or there. Let's really dig a little bit deeper. I want to be very clear with you about something in my life. I'm not sure if you can see my screen. I should probably stop saying that, but this is the part where I'm showing you that I'm presenting, and I'm going to take one of the bullet points that I just mentioned in my introduction. 17 years in higher education. I've worked at Indiana University, Arizona State University, and American University. Here's what actually happened at that bullet point. The narrative behind the scenes is that I went to Indiana University and I was making like $30,000 a year. Oh, that's not a lot, but at the time, I was like, okay, I'll just take it. And then I got pregnant and married in that order. That was a surprise, both things, and did not expect that to happen. I decided to take a year off and raise my son for the first year. I, as a woman, decided to choose to step outside of work and stay at home with my son because it was important to me. Moved to Arizona for my husband's opportunity, and that was really cool. So moved to Arizona, really liked the area, and then, oh my God, I had another baby. So that was happening, did not expect that one either. Took 6 months off, decided to spend time with her, raise her, and do that as, again, in and out of work. And I literally grasped at the first opportunity I could find at Arizona State. Someone's like, here's an opportunity, do you want to take it? And I was like, absolutely, get me out of here, I'm a terrible stay-at-home mother. All of that, I was like desperately trying to grab at anything and trying to like get back into work and also still show up for my kids. And that's a familial responsibility that was on my shoulders. After a while at American, I was like, we need some diversity. Arizona is really white. So we moved to DC, which was fantastic. I got a job at American University. Luckily, I didn't know how I was going to do that. That imposter syndrome was rising up. I got to American University. The second day on the job, my boss fired the entire team and kept me and one other person and said, go build a career center. And I was like, you know that I haven't been working much. I've been having kids. I've been doing some things at home. I have no idea how to build a career center. What are you talking about? I didn't say that to him. That was my narrative internal. I was dying. I didn't think I could do it. I had no confidence. And people can easily say, Jenn, just be more confident. I hate when people say that. It's just not that easy. You don't just wake up one day and you're like, oh, actually, here's my confidence. That's actually not how confidence works. You don't just like fake it till you make it thing. I mean, that can be effective only to a certain point. At some point, you actually have to resonate and have that confidence. Here's the thing, though. If you think about what confidence is, there are really three things that it is: self-esteem, optimism, and empowerment. So if you are confident, self-confident in your leadership, self-confident as a woman, the self-esteem part is knowing that you're valuable, worthwhile, and capable. That's self-esteem. That's point number one. The second point of confidence is optimism. You must be certain of your abilities. And that's a really hard thing, right? Being certain of your abilities. That's that imposter. That's my constant, like, I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. I've had 2 babies and hardly been at work. I can't do all these things. The optimism was my issue. And finally, empowered. Act courageously to face a challenge. If you feel empowered in a position that you're working in or you're doing something and you're like, I'm feeling like I have some choices here and I can make some calls. If you don't feel empowered or not in a culture that empowers you, that could also be dabbling with your self-confidence. So self-esteem, optimism, and empowerment. My issue was the optimism. So here's some other things. If you're someone who has low self-confidence coming into new roles, new things, or that imposter syndrome, there could be 3 different reasons why, and I like to give the why behind things sometimes so that you can understand and unpack it a little bit and decide, how do I want to show up? How do I want to work on my confidence of my imposter syndrome, should I have some? So there's 3 different contributing factors. It's inherent, there are social pressures, and then there's choices. So a contributing factor is that it's inherent, so the balance of neurochemicals in your brain. That's just the way you're wired. Social pressures, how you're treated within your culture or environment. We're going to get to intersectionality in a minute, but a Black woman is going to have a very different experience than an LGBTQ white woman. There are social pressures in all of those things I just said. And finally, choices. How you choose to think about risks, challenges, and setbacks. You have a choice to either lean in, and I kind of hate and roll my eyes about that word, or lean out about that. Your choices matter. If you choose to take the risks and the challenges, your confidence will come. It's the risk-taking. You know that women have these barriers, right? So not only am I showing up with the imposter syndrome and the low self-confidence at every point behind my bullet points, I then, let's say I build my self-confidence up, I get that optimism and I'm doing that and I'm hitting my stride and I'm like, this is awesome. Then all of a sudden I'm running into these barriers at work. We all know what that is. The 2 big ones are masculine culture and differing expectations. We are in a system, in a hierarchy, in an old system and hierarchy, rather, of masculine culture. And this movement, the social unrest, and the women's movement over the past several years is trying to tear down some of those barriers and those walls, okay? So the masculine culture, women are often not recognized, developed, or promoted to leadership because of the current structures and systems in place. And there's not a ton of leadership pipelines in some areas. If you're in a traditionally male-focused industry, you may not see a ton of women in leadership, and that's a pipeline issue. And of course, hierarchical approaches to how we are managing and working as a group and as a team. Finally, there are differing expectations between women and men. Lower salaries, slower paths to promotions, and glass ceiling, we know those are barriers that women face. And did I mention familial responsibility should you choose to decide to have a family, by the way? Not everybody wants to have children, and that's fine. But it's on the woman to make that choice. I gave you that information. I had 2 children, and I had to take the time off. I wanted to, but I really wanted to get back to work. Also, a couple other things to mention. We already mentioned imposter syndrome. Women self-select out of opportunities all the time. If there's a promotion and then a job description, it's like these 10 bullet points, there's a job description, and a woman's like, I have 9 out of 10, I better not apply. That's like a thing, right? People self-select out before they can actually get into the roles and into a promotion track. And I really want to talk about, at a different time, about the queen bee phenomenon. Did I mention that my dissertation and my doctorate work is about women in leadership? I'm real passionate about it. The queen bee phenomenon is women keeping other women down. Let me give you an example. This is the part where we would have engaged, where I would have given you this case study, and we would have been back and forth about what you would have done. I'm going to read you the case study. It's an important one, and then we'll talk. This case study is called Attack of the Queen Bee. You are a woman that was recently hired to lead 2 teams and drive change in a brand new position. You have a lot of energy and passion for what you do. You sit on a leadership team with 5 white men. Although you are highly regarded and respected, you constantly get interrupted and oftentimes feel devalued or dismissed by this team, which isn't necessarily intentional. Through the first year, you have been told by many sources in the college and across the university that the only reason that you've been successful so far is because you're a flirt and you have inappropriate relationships with men on the leadership team. You've also heard that your personality and high energy is fake. In fact, the ones who are saying this are often other women. So, as a woman in leadership, how do you continue to drive strategy, lead a team, and achieve your goals without second-guessing yourself and feeling demoralized? Asking for a friend. So this is where I would say, what would you do in this situation? How do you do, this is a situation that happened, what's going on, how would you handle this? Obviously, this situation is a real situation, and it's my situation. Athens is hard. Athens can be hard on women. But this is how I handled it. Addressing it with my boss. And the first time it was addressed with my boss, there was a lot of emotion behind it, because I was shocked and surprised. Addressing it with my boss again a few months later when it didn't go away. And also looping in Title IX and HR and other things. But the most important thing that I did was that I addressed it straight on with the women who were talking about it. So, and as hard as that is, and I'm a very high emotion person and sensitive, I had to practice this, and I would talk to the women and say, I understand that you're concerned about a relationship I'm having or not having, and I'd like to talk to you about that. And then it was quickly, no, it's fine. It's just something that I've heard. It was helpful for me to understand the boundaries that I need to keep. Who I happy hour with in DC doesn't get a second glance, but who I happy hour with in Athens sure does. That didn't seem fair. That's okay, though. I got my power back by addressing it head on. As hard as that was, addressing it head on, putting in some boundaries for me, because what I had to do, it actually worked. And here I go. And I also, as I get older, and I also have like a whatever. This is just what it is. I don't care. So maybe that's happened too. But I put that there because this is an unfair thing that's happening. It's a queen bee. It's a woman-to-woman thing. Like that sucks. So I have that here. It's better dialoguing, but at least I have it out there. That is my experience, though, as a white 42-year-old woman. That is my experience. And women are not a monolith. My experience is very different than other people's experience. I'm talking from my perspective and my experience and my journey and my narrative. So the confidence that I've tried to get throughout the years and then having that on top of it, that layered narrative of like who I am and what others think of me, it's total bullshit, but I had to address it. That's my experience. Could you imagine being a black gay woman dealing with that? It's what we call intersectionality. Intersectionality was really coined by a fabulous woman, Kimberly Crenshaw. I'm going to play you something here in a minute. It's the idea that social categorizations like race, class, and gender, they're given individual to a group. They overlap in different ways of discrimination. And she does a better job explaining it, so I'm going to play this 2-minute clip, and I think it's really important for you to listen.
I began to use the term intersectionality to deal with the fact that many of our social justice problems like racism and sexism are often overlapping, creating multiple levels of social injustice. Now, the experience that gave rise to intersectionality was my chance encounter with a woman named Emma DeGraffenreid. Emma DeGraffenreid was an African-American woman, a working wife, and a mother. I actually read about Emma's story from the pages of a legal opinion written by a judge who had dismissed Emma's claim of race and gender discrimination against a local car manufacturing plant. Emma, like so many African-American women, sought better employment for her family and for others. She wanted to create a better life for her children and for her family. But she applied for a job, and she was not hired, and she believed that she was not hired because she was a black woman. Now, the judge in question dismissed Emma's suit. And the argument for dismissing the suit was that the employer did hire African Americans, and the employer hired women. The real problem, though, that the judge was not willing to acknowledge was what Emma was actually trying to say, that the African Americans that were hired, usually for industrial jobs, maintenance jobs, were all men. And the women that were hired, usually for secretarial or front office work, were all white. Only if the court was able to see how these policies came together would he be able to see the double discrimination that Emma DeGraffenreid was facing. But the court refused to allow Emma to put two causes of action together to tell her story because he believed that by allowing her to do that, she would be able to have preferential treatment. She'd have an advantage by being able to have two swings at the bat when African American men and white women only had one swing at the bat. But, of course, neither African American men or white women needed to combine a race and gender discrimination claim to tell the story of the discrimination they were experiencing.
I think it's important that we talk about intersectionality right now. As a white woman, I refuse to sit on the sidelines anymore and say things like, oh, that sucks, I can't believe that happened. And Black Lives Matter is a very, very important part of what's happening in our world right now. And if we are not uplifting other voices and other women who have oppressed voices, we're not doing our duty as human beings. So my stuff now, my research, my work, and my reading will always include the intersectionality component for women. I think it's a really important part of what we're doing right now, what we should be doing. And so that's why I'm building this into every single thing that I do. It's important that we address it. The intersectionality of a Black woman who identifies as LGBTQ is a very different walk of life than my white, and I didn't even talk about social class. There's all those different things that are happening here, and it needs to be addressed, I think, as far as like coaching for confidence. I just walked you through, here's my imposter syndrome, here's my confidence issues, here's how I've built myself up. And I'm like, I want to roll my eyes at like the white woman who cannot help. I cannot help myself. I won't talk for other women. I cannot help myself, and I'm constantly oh, look at this. That is a thing, and that is my journey. And there are other women who have dealt with and had to deal with barriers that I have not had to deal with as a cisgendered white woman. How about we look at a new perspective? How about when we are working on teams, we are coaching people, we are leading people, we're looking at it with a different perspective and a different lens because we owe it to them, to everybody, and to yourself, to start really understanding and working with women that have all walks of life. Intentional and active communities of practice at work will matter. Now, you may not be in a position where you can create that and foster that. I encourage you to have conversations about it with your team, with your boss, about why this matters. The collaborative learning communities and communities of practice for affinity groups like women or other groups that find themselves pulling together, they're self-identified, and they bring women towards a set of shared interests and goals. And it really flattens the expertise, which allows for continued leadership among a lot of people in these little small groups. It's a basis for a new collaborative norm that I think can really make a huge difference in the world of work. It's active listening, active supporting, because everybody's journey is a little bit different. And if you have these affinity groups in place at work or in your social group, social circles outside of work, that matters. So building that together intentionally and actively, that's how we start to make a difference about the intersectionality component that is really important for women here. How do you build that confidence within those barriers? Let's just look at that imposter syndrome real quick, because I want to go back to that. Okay, the intersectionality piece is also here hovering, and there's a lot of layers right now, and I hope that you're following. The imposter syndrome that, by the way, that Black woman who identifies as LGBTQ could also be experiencing that for a number of different ways. So a couple of things about the insecurity piece, and I'm not saying this is what you do. I'll speak in the I language. My perceived insecurities might sound like this in imposter syndrome. I'm a fraud. Others might see my weakness. They'll find out that I have no idea what I'm talking about. Or maybe I am ethnically diverse, and I feel like others won't be able to relate to me. So how do you overcome that? How do you overcome that imposter syndrome? I talked to you, gave you some things about self-confidence and the reasons why low self-confidence might exist. But more than that, what are the tactical takeaways that you can have as somebody who has imposter syndrome, or you are a woman of color with imposter syndrome? Naming the feeling versus actually the facts might help. So if I'm like, I'm a fraud, am I really a fraud? Or am I really nervous that I don't know? Or am I underprepared on something? Or am I feeling uneasy? So what is the feeling attached to that? That might help identify that. The feeling part, journal it out. Are you really a fraud? If you're a fraud, you wouldn't be in the role that you're in, or whatever. Embrace resourcefulness. This is a really big deal. As women, we feel like we have to know it all, have the answers, be a pleaser, make everybody happy, do all the things at home. Oh yeah, doing all the things at work and then coming home and directing shit at home. Yeah. It's a lot, right? And it's a lot of being on all the time. It's okay that you don't have the answer. It's okay for you to say, it's a great question. I'm going to get back to you tomorrow because I don't know the answer to that. I would rather say that more confidently than being like, here's some nonsense I'm going to make up on the fly. Yeah, so it's being resourceful, knowing how to get to the answer, but not giving it right away. And that's a really hard thing for us to shift that mindset. But I think it's okay to say. You may not have the answer all the time. That does not mean you're a fraud. That does not mean you're an imposter. It means that you're a human being and you're going to get the answer. Don't wait for the confidence to show up. When I said earlier about like, oh, just be more confident. Just, go ahead, just be more confident. That also isn't how this works, right? You're going to get the confidence and the courage by stepping outside of your comfort zone, taking risks, failing. Go ahead, fail. See what happens from that. I'm pretty confident that you will not fail at that same thing again. You'll learn from it, right? Go ahead and give that a try. Just the confidence will come as you take your risks. And that's hard and scary and vulnerable, and that is perfectly fine. Finally, if you are a woman that is ethnically diverse or has other social identities that you are connected to, do you feel like an outsider at work? You might, and that could be a thing. And as someone who is leading other women with different intersectionalities, you as a boss, you owe it to yourself to say, I'm checking in with you. You seem like something's wrong here. What's going on? I'd like to hear more about your experience. If they feel like an outsider, you should talk about it and talk about those collaborative communities that we talked about. What are the support systems that the women of color have at work? Those barriers exist all over. The imposter syndrome is a big one, which is why I wanted to dive into one of those details now. Okay, so here's the next part where I was going to have you workshop on some things here, but I'm going to have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. I think what helped me in figuring out some of my confidence and figuring out my pathway of promotions and my stuff in higher ed, I had to really get clear about my narrative, my purpose, and my clarity, right? So I have 4 quadrants here. If the slides are up, you can see, and I think this is a really important part of the conversation for you to get clear and confident, all right? The first quadrant is your personal highlight section, and this is where I'd want you to really think through and write out what successes have you had. How did they shape you as a leader or as a professional? Okay? When you're really clear about the personal highlight section, I would encourage all of you to take a few minutes, write this down as we go along, and you can come back to it later. The next quadrant, times of struggle. What events of your life were challenging, and what did you learn? Okay, so any times of struggle for you, write those out. And by the way, they can be personal. It doesn't have to always be professional. Mentors and role models. Who were key players in your life? What lessons did you learn, and how do they impact you? I did not have a lot of women mentors in my career. I only recently had my first women mentor in the past year, and it's been amazing. I didn't have a lot of them, so I'm hoping that you've identified some mentors and role models at work that you can identify with. And finally, the last quadrant is watershed moments. What transitions have you made in your journey? How did these transitions impact you? This really will help you get more clarity around where you're going and what you're doing and your trajectory as a woman, and professional growth, and also personal growth. This helped me get really clear about what I needed to do. I went and I did something like this at a 2-week-long women's conference. We're talking about leadership and people in higher education. And I did something like this that was similar. So the personal highlights for me have been like different opportunities at universities that have been really great. Times of struggle. I had some professional struggles along the way. Mentors and role models I quickly identified. And the watershed moments. I didn't have a ton of them until recently, where I went to this conference and 2 things came out of that conference. I needed a doctorate and I needed a divorce. Talk about a transition. So how do you bring that vision to life? How do you, not the divorce, but how do you bring your professional vision? How do you bring all that? Because here's the thing, we are walking through life and it is scary and there will be times of a fire. Guess what? I've been walking through 2 years of a journey that I was not prepared for. And there have been moments where I'm like, yes! And there are moments where I can't get out of bed. So, every single one of us has a journey that we're walking through. And I just am here to talk to you about the part where you can get your narrative back, your clarity, get rid of your imposter syndrome, build your self-confidence. How do you bring that to life? So if I think about my vision as a leader, thinking about my own professional career, what I wanted to do, what I thought about, personal things aside, how did I want to actually lead a team. So my vision was, I will always get to know the people I lead. I will get to know what they care about, what they love to do, their concerns, and their professional goals. I mean, that sounds adorable, right? Like, oh, you want to get to know your people. That is not some BS, by the way. I really do mean it. If you could ask anybody who worked for me, I take a lot of time to get to know who they are and what makes them tick, because it matters to me. Here's why, though. I have a story behind that. The story is like this. The reason this is important to me is that early in my career, I had several managers who only cared about me showing up and completing the tasks they had assigned me. Then I changed jobs, and I had a manager who talked to me, shared with me, taught me, and I came alive. I felt appreciated, I felt safe, and I gave 100%. I made a decision based on my experience that if I was ever a leader, I would be a leader that knew, really, really knew my team, and I would take the time to bring out the best in them. That is actually my vision. It's not about the metrics and the goals and all that and like kicking ass. I mean, all that is very important. I'm highly competitive. But what matters more to me are the people, which may have got it twisted when I first got to Athens, and the people matter. So when I'm talking to people and lunching and drinking and whatever with the people, that can be misconstrued. So even though that was a vision to really get to know the people, the white men on a leadership team, the team that I'm leading, all the different categories, the people matter. And that's what I was working on. And as a leader, it does work. I say that story to end with because I think it's important that you consider, if that is part of your story, understanding folks, understanding the intersectionality of a woman. All of us have a different story, a different journey, a different thing, a different whatever we're going through, personally or professionally. And it needs to be addressed by yourself. But then also, if you have the way to impact others around you and your team, you have the ability to come in and address intersectionality things, imposter syndrome, self-confidence. There's all there. It's all in the mixture in the big bag, and we're complicated people, and that's okay. So, my introduction slide again, if you can see it. There's all the things that I started off with, higher ed and my new job, and I'm a global leader in Cambridge and a doctorate degree. All of that's there. I've actually learned to really own it. Every one of them has a story behind why I can't do it. I don't think I should be able to do it. And then I remember that vision. And then I get my clarity again. And then I get right back to, it's okay, because you're going to keep going. And you've been through a really hard journey for 2 years, and you're going to get through it. And I have this final slide of myself. This is a picture of me a couple years ago, just after my divorce in Prague, and a lot of the chaos behind me, the spray paint, and then there's me in the middle there with my favorite color, black, like my soul. Just kidding. I just wanted to laugh. So this is me in the middle with all that crazy behind me, because here's the thing. That crazy chaos behind me, every one of us has that in our head at some point. There could be chaos and voices and things that are telling you that you aren't good enough, and these are all the things. Whether you are a black woman or a white woman or a gay woman, these are all the things that are going on. We have no idea about it. But at the end of the day, in the center with that black, that's my favorite color, who I am at the end of the day, it's going to be okay, and we're going to get through that. But I want to recognize, and why I wanted to bring here today, all the confidence things, all the things that we as women have to think about every day, familial responsibilities, struggling relationships at home maybe, hard bosses at work, a number of things. It could be anything. That's the color and the chaos behind me, and at the end of the day, this is where I am. I mean, it was 35 minutes, but we would have engaged better if it was a full hour. So I'm happy to take questions and answers now. There's 5 people in the audience, I don't think, from anybody here. So I think that we're going to do this somehow through the powers of technology. Not really sure how we can do a Q&A. I don't know if there's anything specific that I mentioned that you want me to dive in deeper about, but to kick it off, I'm not sure if there's anything that anyone has brought up.
So we're going to look at the chat in the YouTube video. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and pop them in the chat box.
I did have another case study, by the way, that included, it was a really good one. But case studies are hard to do presenting. So if we were going to be in a small group, it would have been really cool to hear dialogue around that. But this is where we are. Chris.
Wonderful talk, thank you. And thank you for being so resilient and changing the way you were presenting.
Sure.
You mentioned that when you went to the conference, you realized two things. Was it an aha moment? And how did that progress? Did you get home and you realize it? Was it obviously already there and it just took that conference to bring that?
Yeah, Chris Cornwell asked, for those who couldn't hear at home, when I went to the conference and two things came up, the divorce and doctorate. Was it ongoing or it was an aha moment? And it was ongoing. I mean, it had been, both things I had been talking about and thinking about for years. And so I think that I finally had the courage, the confidence to take that step that was really hard on so many levels and still is hard. So it was ongoing. Thanks for the question.
Lindsay Shaver said, do you have any go-to pep talks you give yourself when you were feeling the imposter syndrome strong?
Yeah, I got to be honest, no. I am a really negative self-talk and terrible at self-compassion. And that's something that people are surprised about because I'm a pretty compassionate person in general, and I think that people are really surprised by that, but I actually have a really hard time pulling out of that spiral. So the negative self-talk or whatever the issue is when you're spiraling out, is what I call it. Mine usually happens in the morning. So what helps me is I exercise daily. So it's like if I'm running or whatever I'm doing, that really helps me get level set with who I am. And the pep talk is, this is temporary. The feeling is temporary. What you're dealing with is temporary. You're going to work through that feeling, and you're going to be on the other side of it. That's the pep talk that I tell myself, and my therapist tells me. So I would say that understanding, like, I'm feeling really scared right now for something that I have no control over, and this sucks, and I'm going to sit with this for a minute.
The next question we have is, could you go more into detail about how to set boundaries in professional work setting?
Yeah, I think you have to understand how you are perceived. And I've had friends who are like, who cares how they perceive you? You just keep doing you. And I'm like, well, because that's not comfortable for everybody, and I need to be aware of that. Setting professional boundaries means, like, I'm not comfortable with you closing the door, white man, in my office. I'd like to keep the door open. You're not going to say it like that, but I just say, yeah, we can leave the door open, it's fine. That's a boundary, right? If I close that door, that sends signals to other people about what could be happening behind that closed door. So an example of that would be to keep the doors open as a boundary. Also, if someone invites me to have drinks at Jackie O's at 8 p.m., I would say, how about we go from 5 to 6, not 4. We don't start drinking at 4. From 5 to 6, where it's appropriate happy hour time. So I think that the appropriateness behind it is optics. Unfortunately, we do have to think about that, but those are the boundaries that I had to put in place for myself.
There's another question. Is there any tips for working with a team who may not be convinced that you're qualified at first to lead them?
Oof. Yes, I've all right, so the question was, any experience of working with a team does not think that you're qualified enough to lead them. You're going to have to take a lot of time one-on-one with each team member, and not just lip service, not just 30 minutes. Like, you really need to give each one of them separately time, and you need to listen and you need to hear them over and over again. It's going to take some time to get there, by the way. I would give yourself 6 months at least. But the more that you invest in them, that's an emotional bank account. We've all heard that before. Investing in them will actually pay back in dividends. When I first got here at OU, I went kind of on a listening tour, and I listened to all the advisors and all of the team, my team everywhere, and more than an hour. I would listen, and I would follow up. I would listen, and I would follow up constantly. And I had a lot of buy-in to create. And you're in that situation now where you have to create buy-in. Give them as much time as you possibly can, which sounds like it may not work, but that for me is like the relationships that I have built with people, I think has made me successful, and I'm not kidding. I think that really does work. Great questions. Anything else?
How did you address those women who were essentially bullying you?
I didn't say the word bully, but I appreciate that. It wasn't just women, let me be clear. It was like everybody. Well, I addressed it head on, and that was a hard conversation to have, especially with tenured faculty members. I think I mentioned I had to practice the conversation. I had to practice saying, I understand that you are concerned about relationships, and so I'd like to talk to you about those straight on so that we can clear anything that you're confused about. And then my other thing was a call to action. I was like, well, when you hear this, I'm going to need you to shut it down because it's slander, and I need you to shut it down. So I just addressed it head on. It was really hard to do. I also went through the appropriate systemic channels I had to working at an institution in order to feel protected. I want to be real clear that I did not wear lipstick today, and I'm feeling it. I feel very seen. Is that it?
I think that's it for right now.
Yeah, I just went all over the place today, and I hope I gave you something. My goal here today was for you to have one thing that you can walk away with and to think about and to be curious about for either for yourself, for your team, for who you're leading, maybe your boss. So I hope that I said something here that resonated, and of course, always happy to follow up. My email is Murphy, M-U-R-P-H-Y, j2@ohio.edu. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or follow-ups, and when this pandemic is over, I will happily meet any of you women at Jackie O's for a beer. So thank you so much for coming, and sorry it was a little bit short, but maybe you want to start early. I don't know what you want to do, Dani.
Yeah, let's start at 11.
11? Okay, we're going to start at 11. Kari Lehman, who is my coworker and I adore, she's going to talk to you about being from bitchy to bold, from bold to bitchy. Bitchy to bold. It's a good one. Anyway, thank you, everybody, and I'll see you soon.
Hey friends, Annie Laurie here from Ohio University WellWorks. Thank you so much for joining me for this movement break. We'll go ahead and stretch our neck and arms by lifting one arm up overhead, pushing the palm out to my side. As I tilt my head, I'll also drop that arm. When I find any kink, I'm going to go ahead and pulse it out right here, trying to work through any tension that I might be feeling. When you feel ready, you'll raise that neck and then lift the opposite arm, push the palm out, drop the arm as you tilt your head in the opposite direction, pulsing out any kinks or tension that you might experience. Good, shake that out and we'll move into the hip openers. What we'll do is first put weight on one leg and then we'll lift the other leg with a nice bend in the knee. Open your hip by pushing that knee out to the side, dropping the leg, bringing it back to center. Do that a few times on one leg at whatever speed or range of motion feels good for you. You lift, open the hip, drop, return to center. Good, let's quickly activate our core. Feet are about hip width apart, palms touching, and shoot those arms up over your head. Keeping your hips steady, solid, right where they are. You'll use your upper body to make big circles, as though you have a Sharpie between your hands and you're trying to draw a big circle on your ceiling. Activating that whole core. Couple times around each direction, so let's go ahead and switch opposite direction. Remember, you're moving with your upper body, not your hips. Go ahead and drop, shake that out. Now I want you to have a narrow stance with your legs so your feet are as close together as you can comfortably manage. And we'll squat in a narrow stance here. So I'm going to turn so you can see. What I'm going to do is shoot my hips out as I bend my knees as though I'm sitting in a very low stool. Keeping the weight in my heels, shoot back, and then pull up. Squeezing your glutes at the top. Squat low, squeeze up. 1. The last thing we'll do are calf raises. So go ahead and hold on to a wall or a chair if you need the extra support and balance. Feet are about hip width apart. They can be a little bit more narrow if you wish. And all we'll do is raise up onto the balls of our feet and then lower. Raise and lower. You can also speed it up and pulse it. And if at any time it becomes too intense, you can alternate. Bending the knees a little bit more. 3, 2, 1. And you're done. Excellent work. Thank you so much for joining me for this movement break. For full-length movement videos and well-being resources, check out our virtual well-being memberships. We offer a wealth of live and on-demand classes such as alignment, balance, and core, total body strength, Pilates, ab lab, cardio tone, strong nation, yoga, and so much more. Let WellWorks help you prepare for all of life's adventures.
It's my honor to represent Hocking Valley Bank as today's ticketing sponsor. As women, we face unique challenges. Add a pandemic, and it can seem overwhelming. We hope today allows you to draw strength from the women you're about to hear from, because what I know for sure is it's women who will change the world.
All right, everybody, good morning. And thank you for joining us today. My name is Kari Lehman, and I am absolutely delighted to speak with you today. And Jenn Murphy has set such a high bar. I'm feeling like I've got the imposter syndrome right now. So bear with me while we go through this. But as I said, when I got the invitation from Dani to speak today, I was so humbled and so excited. And thank you for joining us, and thank you for being adaptable as we are attempting to adapt to the technology today too. So as I said, my name is Kari Lehman. I'm the Assistant Dean of Graduate and Professional Programs Administration within the College of Business at Ohio University. That's a long title. I can hardly get it all out. But basically what that means is my team and I operate all of the graduate programs within the College of Business, So that's the MBA, the Masters of Accountancy, the Masters of Business Analytics, the Masters of Science and Management, the Masters of Sports Administration, and oh, by the way, 10 graduate certificates. When I interviewed for this position about 4 years ago, I was really excited to learn that we have about 1,100 graduate students within the College of Business, and more than 90% of them were working professionals. And they were not only here in Athens, but around the country. This was absolutely my sweet spot, because before I came to Ohio University, I worked the previous 20 years primarily in consulting. And we worked with companies like these, and I led sales teams, national sales teams, to consult with organizations like this in areas of leadership, sales performance, diversity and inclusion. So to be able to come to Ohio University and work with working professionals who were our target audience, it was just a natural fit. But you should also know that before I got into consulting, I grew up as a chemical engineer. So I graduated with a bachelor's and a master's degree in chemical engineering and worked in the extremely male-dominated field of manufacturing. So that was also quite a learning experience, and it helped me develop my own ability to make my voice heard in the workplace. This is also me. I am an Athens boomeranger. I grew up here in Athens. My family has been in Athens for generations. I went to Athens High School, and I was one of those folks that when I graduated, I was among the first to leave. You can see in the lower left, I come from a family of many strong women, and actually about 3 of the folks in that picture, the last time I was here at Stuart's Opera House, we sat right over there and watched the Indigo Girls. So it's really exciting for me to be up on stage today. Say again? We don't have slides. Please hold.
White screen? Okay. Will you tell them? Kevin, put a white screen up. Tell them we'll be back in 3 minutes.
We will be back in 3 minutes, working through some technology. All right, everybody, we are back, and this time with slides. Thank you for bearing with us as we work through our technology snafus. But anyway, I was mentioning the amazing group of women that make up my family on the lower left, but I want to point you to the picture in the top left. So for many of us, 40 is a milestone, and it was a milestone for me too. I still lived in Chicago at the time, and I decided that I wanted to spend my birthday in a very special way. I came home, and I was able to have dinner with all 4 of my grandparents, my parents, and my husband at Lake Hope. So that's the picture of us at my 40th birthday. It was an important moment for me too, because it was one of the turning points in my life where I decided I really wanted to come home. I really wanted to be back in Athens. The sense of community here is like no other place I have ever lived. So it was a turning point, and thank goodness for me, I have a husband who was up for an exciting change. This is also me. So I am an avid quilter, and you can see my gamel there. Her name is Rosie, and she and I own a business called Appalachia Modern Quilt Company. And so what I do is I work with quilters around Athens, around the community, but nationally, and I help them finish their quilts. And I truly believe that every one of us has a need to create, whether it's cooking, whether it's crafting, whether it's art, whatever it is, we all have that physical need to create. And this is an opportunity for me to do this, but also an amazing opportunity to build relationships with people around the community, and to date, all women from all sorts of different backgrounds and all sorts of many generations. Dani asked me for a quote as part of my bio, and so I want to start with this. I want to give you this as a context for which the rest of the presentation will flow. So this is a quote from Maya Angelou. "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody." I totally believe this. And I believe that we have the ability to choose our own path, to make decisions for whatever it is that we want to do. And we don't have to be held to anyone else's expectations. And as a matter of fact, I'm not sure that we set our own expectations properly. So on a regular basis, I ask you all to consider your expectations of yourself. Are they right? Do they make you happy? Are you moving in the right direction? But I want you to hold this as we go through our presentation today. I typically set forth an agenda when I'm speaking, but today it felt more appropriate to set forth intentions. So I want to start with just acknowledging that the struggle is real. Gender bias exists in the workplace. And I want to help us all think about how we can bring our full selves to work, not twist ourselves into knots to fit in and be successful, but how we can use our full selves to do that. I want to spend some time on communicating with impact. I also want to spend some time talking about investing in yourself. Very short segment, but important. And finally, I want to talk about being an ally and developing others to be allies around us. So, newsflash, it's real. Gender bias exists in the workplace. We've heard it all. Have you heard some of these things? I know I have. When we ask women to talk about how they feel in the workplace, a word that is often used is excluded. So it might be that their male counterparts go to lunch together, they go out for drinks together, they have coffee together, they have a poker club or guys' night, whatever. It can feel excluding. So we feel that. Sometimes we feel like our voices aren't heard. So we're sitting at a table, we make a suggestion, It's like we didn't say anything. What happened? So these are some of the things that we feel and we hear in the workplace. And I'm betting that many of you have heard some of these same things. We also hear women say that others make decisions on their behalf based on what they think they know about you. You have kids at home, you probably don't want to travel. You have other obligations, you probably wouldn't be interested in this. We hear these things all the time, and we need to do a better job of making it known and being heard. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. So this may be a little bit extreme, but I've actually seen this happen. So you can see from the cartoon, I'll read it for you. A woman sitting around with men at a conference table, and the caption is, "This is an excellent suggestion, Miss Triggs. Perhaps one of the men would like to make it." You ever seen that? Yep, I have too. So it's real. Female leaders are more likely to be described as abrasive, aggressive, and emotional. This from the New York Times. And so what do? We start to take on more masculine traits, more masculine behaviors, because that's what we've all seen works in the workplace to be successful. And in fact, half of women feel like they need to act like men to get ahead in the workplace. There are hundreds of articles just like this. This one by Sandy Thompson, "How I Turned Bitch into Badass." I was one of these women too. I went to work, I had a game face. Back in the 90s, no judgment here, we had jackets with shoulder pads. We tried to look like men in the workplace. We talked like men, we talked about what men were interested in. We worked to fit in. But let me tell you, about 8 years into my career, something happened. I had my first female boss. Never happened before. 8 years into my career, I had never reported to a woman. It changed my life. So I started letting a little bit of myself out, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And before you knew it, I was bringing my full self to work. Never happened before. And over the past, 12, 15 years, I've had more female bosses than men. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It just happened that way. And I've gotten a lot of really, really good coaching from them. None of them ever said to me, "You need to act more like a man." That was not the coaching. It was more about how to get your voice to be heard by being you. So that's what I want to talk about today. To advance in her career, a woman needs to be perceived as competent, confident, and an effective leader. A woman's problem is that if she behaves precisely as a man with a similar objective would behave, she's likely to be regarded as pushy, aggressive, and unpleasant. In a word, a bitch. So it's important to recognize that a woman's path to the top is not to act more like a man. So, what's interesting is that we have all seen successful men, leaders in the workplace. And we've seen a lot more successful men, leaders in the workplace than women. And so we naturally, we've been brought up to correlate their behaviors with being successful, because that's the model that we've seen. I'm here to tell you that that is not the only way. That's just the way that most of us have seen. So let's talk about being you. Just in case we needed one more thing to help us understand what's happening in the workplace or what does happen in the workplace, Pixar put out this amazing short about 1.5 years ago called Pearl. And it's about a ball of yarn that gets a job, really exciting job, in a financial services company. a very male-dominated financial services company called, by the way, BRO Capital, Bro Capital. And so what this 8-minute film does is it walks through what Pearl does to try to fit in, be one of the guys. And it shows how far she's willing to take it until another woman comes into the office. So I'm not going to play this for you today, but I highly recommend you Google it, you go to YouTube, and look it up, Pearl, P-U-R-L. So what do? The first thing I want to talk about is status and owning your status. What do I mean when I say status? Well, bless Google, the first definition that came up in Google was spot on for me. Status, the relative social, professional, or other standing of someone or something. Notice I circled relative. So it's how we are perceived versus someone else, maybe at a peer level, whoever, but how we are perceived versus someone else. Jenn talked about this earlier, but this is perfect. This is from the New York Times. Lisa DeMore, a clinical psychologist, says, underqualified and underprepared men don't think twice about leaning in, whereas overqualified and overprepared, too many women still hold back. Women feel confident only when they are perfect. Anybody feel that way? Yeah. So what happens is we don't go for jobs unless we clearly tick off every one of those qualifications. Whereas culturally, it's more likely the man will tick off one or two and say, I'm going to go for it, see what happens. And from a hiring perspective, hiring managers often stuff their job descriptions. They are fishing. They are looking for whatever that comes at them, they're looking for the best thing. The likelihood that they are going to get a person that checks every single one of the boxes that they put out there is pretty slim. And diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants who work with organizations counsel them to really think about those job descriptions. What is absolutely necessary to be successful? Not because we're trying to lower the qualifications, but because we're trying to get a really broad, highly qualified population. So I want you to think about that. When you're going for a promotion, when you're going for an opportunity, when you're going for an assignment, if you don't check all the boxes, think about what you do check and what you do bring to the table. And so to Jenn's point, you don't build confidence overnight, but take the leap. Try it. What's the worst that can happen? You don't get it. Keep going. So I talked about building confidence, and as Jenn says, I can't just say, go build your confidence, you got this. Yeah, no. But I can give you a few tips to do in the moment. A lot of these I kind of used today, just saying. Use your power music. Why do you think baseball players have walk-up music? Makes them feel good, makes them feel powerful. Find your own walk-up music. Use it. Use your power stances. Whatever that happens to be for you, use it. Visualization. This is part of preparation. You should visualize. You should think about the high-stakes situation that you're going into. Think about what you're going to say. Think about how others are going to react. Most importantly, visualize how you are going to feel when you walk out of that situation knowing you have nailed it. Visualize. Channel your sheroes. I mentioned that I've worked for a number of really amazing bosses. There's one that I'm sure sits on my shoulder, and she talks to me. I mean, I'm not crazy, I'm like really, but I do channel her. I think about what would she say, what would she do, how would she handle this? And that's something that helps me in terms of handling tricky situations. Don't hide your personality. Own it. The more you own who you are, the more confidence not only you'll feel, but the more confidence you will exude. And finally, if you're still not feeling it, fake it till you make it. Absolutely fake it till you make it. And if there is nothing in your life right now that you're not comfortable with, there's nothing in your life right now that you are not comfortable with, you are not stretching yourself enough. Seek discomfort, grow, and again, fake it till you make it. Speak to be heard. Develop your presence. Speak with boldness and confidence. Reconsider your softening words like, maybe we should try, or perhaps, or maybe an idea is, when we preface something important that we want to say like that, it gives permission to others to dismiss it. Think about how you use your words. Next, where male voices are dominant, pay attention to your pitch, projection, and pace. Sometimes we end sentences up rather than down. That can make a huge impact on how you're heard. If you say, I'm making my decision today about John, that's very different than, I'm making my decision today about John. Think about your pitch. Slow down. Pause for emphasis. I have to tell myself this all the time. You might have noticed when I start speaking in a presentation, I go a little fast. I'm a little bit nervous. I got to take a few breaths, get my stride, get into it, slow down. This one takes a lot of practice. All of these things take a lot of practice, and I'm certainly not perfect at this, but it is a practice. We all need to make progress. Structure your communication. This one's tough. When you have something that you need to say, figure out what is your headline or your bottom line. I used to tell people, bottom line it for me. What's your headline and what are your support points? And structure it. If I have 3 things that I want to tell you, I'm going to say, there are 3 things that I want to talk about. X, Y, and Z. This gives you and gives the listener milestones, and it tells them, it helps them figure out when you are finished. It helps them figure out how to listen to you. As I'm bumbling around, give them 3, 1, 2, 3. They're listening to you through the full thing. Avoid blanket judgments, exaggerating, absolutes, always, never, everybody, nobody. Those blanket statements, those absolutes, can actually undermine your credibility. Fewer, better words. Reduce filler words and swap in more meaningful adjectives. Very fast, rapid. Think about how to use fewer, better words and how to reduce redundancy. So when I write an email, I will go back and reread it and figure out what can I take out that has the same meaning. I want to get to the point faster. I don't want to lose anything, but I want to do it in a much more efficient way. And be straightforward with what you mean. Big one. Stop apologizing. Please stop apologizing. As women, we are taught to defer. We are taught to take responsibility for things that aren't necessarily our things to take responsibility for. We apologize for all sorts of things. We apologize when we ask someone something. I'm so sorry, can I ask you? Stop apologizing. When something has gone wrong, don't automatically assume that it's your responsibility. Dig in, deal with the issue. Now, if you made a mistake, own it, absolutely. But don't apologize unnecessarily. This can undermine your status. And think about gratitude. For someone who is late, I'm running late, or if I haven't responded to an email in the time frame that I would have liked to respond, instead of apologizing, start with, thank you for your patience as I was thinking this through. Replace apologies with gratitude. This is particularly true with written communication. Mind your motives. We're really good, or we've gotten a lot better with tone. trying to get through a soft, pleasant tone in an email, sometimes we can go overboard. Pay attention to your overuse of exclamation points, emojis, written communication. It keeps it all light, but just dial it down a little bit. Also can undermine your status. So here's a quick little sample. For those who can't see, this is a very short email, and I want you to have a look at what you see, what we could change. So, hi Chris, exclamation point. I'm so sorry to bother you with this, but will you please send me the numbers from last week's report? I really need these to finish a presentation for Monday, and I can't find them on the system. Again, I'm so sorry to have to ask. I know you're really busy, smiley face, smiley face. Thanks so much, 4 exclamation points. P.S., say hi to your girlfriend Marie for me. When I read this, I read it as the author of this email is reducing her own status compared to the person she's speaking with. There are some really simple things that you can do just to change this a little bit and even out your status. So I've highlighted a few things. The exclamation points, the 2 apologies, the smiley faces, and the I know you are really busy. Here's what you can end up with very quickly. No change in the impact, but it raises your status in delivering this email. Hi, Chris. How are you doing with the big project? I'm sure it's all consuming these days. I'm working against a deadline and need your help. Will you please send me the numbers from last week's report? I know you've got them at your fingertips, and it will save me from more wasted time digging for it. Thanks in advance for your help. Small changes, big impact on your status relative to the person you're asking. I want to spend just a few minutes talking about investing in yourself through feedback. Feedback is hard. It is so hard to get feedback. It is so hard to accept feedback. It's so hard sometimes to hear what people say. But it is the vitamin of change. If you don't know how others are perceiving you, you cannot make it better. You cannot improve. You cannot develop yourself. It is a critical ingredient to growth. So I'm going to ask you to think about getting feedback from people around you. The first thing I'm going to say is think about who you want feedback from. There's a huge difference in asking your work friend after a meeting to say, that was okay, right? That was really good, right? That was really good, right? You're asking for them to confirm. You're not giving them permission to give you real feedback. Think about who you want feedback from, and think about what kind of feedback you want. To get really effective feedback, ask people in advance. You're going into this meeting, you've been in these meetings before, they don't turn out the way you want. Figure out what you want to ask your colleague to watch for, and be specific in the feedback they give. Once you're done with the meeting, give that person permission to share the good, bad, and the ugly, and take it. So I'm going to say to someone, I really appreciate your paying attention during this meeting. I'd like you to share what you see and what I could do differently, or what I did that led to X. And I want you to be completely honest. Ask for specific examples. Again, if you ask in advance, you're going to be much more likely to get specific examples. And when the person you ask to give you feedback and given permission to give you feedback gives you the feedback, manage your reactions. Don't argue, don't defend yourself, don't explain yourself. Take the feedback. You can decide what you want to do with it, but accept that feedback and thank them. Thank them profusely, because this is what's going to help you grow. So, get a lot of feedback. The final thing I want to talk about today is being an ally and developing allies around you. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I've seen this work and I've seen it not work. So be an ally. Few simple things that you can do to be an ally to others. Listen. When someone is speaking, listen. Don't interrupt. Give them your full attention. This is a big one. Remember we talked about your voice not feeling like your voice isn't heard? Amplify others' ideas and give them credit. If you see someone else's ideas being tossed out, being put on the table and nobody picking them up, bring it up again. If you think it's a good idea, bring it up again and say, you know, Jenny said this a couple of minutes ago. I think it's something we should consider. Whatever that is, bring it up and make sure that you attribute the idea to the person whose voice wasn't heard originally. Invite others to speak. If you're in a meeting, there are usually a few dominant voices. I've never been accused of that, but you know, it happens. There are a few dominant voices in the meeting, and there are often, you know, maybe one or two people who haven't gotten a word in. So you say, Martha, I've been watching you in the meeting, and it looks like you might have something you'd like to say. Would you like to add? Offer it up. Don't necessarily put them on the spot, but give them space to speak. And finally, advocate. Advocate for others. Recommend, refer. Sometimes we're not thought of. Bring names up of people who are perfectly qualified to do the job or who it might even be a stretch assignment. Advocate for others. And finally, teach others to do the same. We can all be allies for each other, and we all should be allies for each other. So teach others to do the same. Listen, amplify, invite others to speak, advocate. And I want to end with this. Dr. Seuss, I love Dr. Seuss. Today you are youer than you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. Why fit in when you were born to stand out? Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Thank you, everybody. I think we have time for Q&A. I haven't looked. Yeah, we do. We have a little bit of time if there are any questions.
Yep, so if you have a question, make sure to pop it in the chat box again, and we will be asking them. If there's any questions out in the crowd here, we can get those started first, too.
Kari, have you ever been directly challenged in a meeting when you have been a strong woman that you appear today, and how did you handle that?
Of course, like every day. And I think the first thing when I'm challenged is to stop and listen. You know, where is that coming from? What is that about? And invite the other person to speak. You know, everybody has good ideas, and my job is to help others bring the ideas out, facilitate that. And one of the hardest parts of my job is to step back and make sure I'm surfacing ideas from others. So yes, I have been challenged a lot. And I think the first step anytime you're challenged is just to step back and listen. Why? What's happening? What's the challenge behind the challenge?
We're waiting for some more questions, but another question would be, what would happen, I guess it's kind of the same sort of question, if somebody keeps undermining you, and how do you kind of work around that?
Well, it's tricky, right? So in an ideal world, what you do is you you have a very honest conversation with that person, and they may not even know that they're doing it. So first, start by assuming positive intent. You don't know what's going on with them. So have a conversation and say, hey, listen, I noticed that you did X, Y, and Z, and this is what it felt like to me, but I just wanted to talk to you about, where you're coming from. So that would be my first reaction of heading it off or having that conversation, because like I said, they may not even know that what they're doing is undermining you.
Yes. Kari, have you ever been told that you are intimidating? You are bold? Asking for a friend.
Jenn Murphy says, have you ever been told that you're intimidating? Not to my face. No, I'm kidding. I actually asked that question recently to my colleagues. And I said, do you think people are intimidated by my behaviors? And so yes, I have been asked that. And I do my best to pay attention to that. If I'm getting a sense that people are not engaging with me the way I would think they would, that's in the back of my mind is there something that I'm doing that is preventing them from engaging? And that might be part of me taking responsibility for things that I shouldn't take responsibility for, kind of back to that bullet point too. But yes, I have been told I can be intimidating, and I actively work to bring that down and engage people to remove the impacts of that.
Any other questions? Pop them in the chat box for us.
Okay? Okay, so we will be back here at 11:45. For Jenn Bennett's Move Like a Girl. Thank you, everybody.
All right, everybody, bonus session time. So my name is Jenn Bennett. I am the Executive Director of Wellbeing at Ohio University. And today I get to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, which is moving like a girl. So this is Moving Like a Girl Quickie Edition, because we're going to squeeze it in before we bring up Jenny. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Dani and the Chamber's Planning Committee for having me on with this fabulous lineup this morning. I hope that you all are finding something helpful. I know I have already. So by the end of this, I just want to cover what we're going to get through. Identifying feel-good and joy-invoking movements, recognizing the benefits that you want, physical, mental, emotional, and implementing one strategy. So this may seem like it's starting out as your traditional, let's move our bodies, let's exercise presentation, and let me tell you, this is not where we're gonna go. Because like the other women before me, I'm pretty much a badass, and I don't lack confidence, for those of you that know me. So I, at one point in time in my past, was the #1 offensive player in roller derby in the state of Ohio, playing international roller derby. My name is Gorgeous Kurz, for those of you. I now play with the Athens Hellbetties. I miss you, teammates. Quick story though, Move Like a Girl gets a bad rap, not sure why, because this is awesome, and I move it all day long. So, but why is that, right? Like the patriarchal society that we've talked about has set us up for failure, because before Title IX, women didn't even get a chance to play sports, right? You had to move in a very specific way. You could move while cooking, you could move while laundrying, you could move by carrying 4 toddlers at the same time, plus your handbag, plus the cart. You know, you did it all. So we've come a long way from there, and we're gonna move a little bit forward from here. So let's shift how we think about movement. Like I said in my intro, and in the description of my session, we're not talking shame, we're not talking guilt, and there is no punishment in what we're talking about today. And this came about after I became the greatest thing since sliced bread for roller derby. I had this struggle, I didn't teach group fitness anymore because I didn't have to. I was the boss. I had to help people now. I didn't do roller derby anymore. So I stopped moving my body. I know, it was an emergency. If you can hear those sirens, it was really a life emergency. So I had to take some time with my therapist to look at, why did I move? What was I looking for? What were the values that movement gave me, right? I'm a high energy kind of person. I'm so glad I've got this whole stage because I might need it at any given point. So for me, it helps calm me down, but it gives me other things. I love skill building. So the top left photo is me in my first roller derby match. It was also Berkeley, my daughter's first roller derby match. I just found out I was pregnant 2 days before, right at the beginning. So 2 awesome women playing roller derby there. And then this is me playing one of the top teams that we had played, getting the MVP for my team. The other thing that I love about movement, or what I need from movement, is I need friendship and I need a community. I'm an extrovert. I love people. I love them. Pandemic's killing me right now, but I love people so much. I believe that being surrounded by a bunch of badass, strong-willed, growth-seeking women make me better. I want to know them. I want to know how they're the same as me. I want to know what makes them awesomely different than me. And let's throw in a side of fun, teamwork, and inclusion. Roller derby is about everybody. Actually, bigger is better. My favorite thing as an offensive player, you line up behind everybody else, and if I see women with hips at least this wide on my team against hips this wide on their team, I'm winning. Nothing's gonna hold me back, right? So I love the fact that we can all find ways to move our bodies, no matter our shape, size, ability level. There is movement you can do. So this is part of the interaction, so we're gonna move through this a little bit quickly, but I am gonna give you a slide at the end to kind of recap everything you're gonna need. But what values do you honor most in your life, and how does movement support them? I got a whole list of values up here. You want fame? Cool, you get to be the best roller derby person ever. You can be famous in your community by running ultra marathons. Whatever it is, you want to support justice. Fantastic, go to a peace march, walk it out all day. That's movement. Stop minimizing the ways you move your body. They all count, and you can align every bit of your movement with values that you have in your life. So what are some movements that you enjoy? You're like, Jenn, but I don't like to move. All right, friends, I'll walk you through it. All right, so here are some thoughts that you might have. What did you like to do when you were little? I was a tetherball champion. Only Brittany Kerr, my best friend, ever beat me. All right, I loved male-dominated sports, and I loved the fact that boys wanted me on their team. Right, I loved that. Football, soccer, I was there for it. I also love to swing, right? So those are ways that you can move. Here's another one. If no one was watching, no one's there, no one's gonna catch you, how would you move your body? Like this, maybe like, What would you do? Would you dance? Would you twirl? Would you hopscotch? Whatever it is. That's another way. What is something that you think is fun that helps you move your body? Some of you might think, sexy time's fun. Maybe I should do a little more of that, right? That counts as movement, And then there's the other thing. Somebody talked about having a song. Mine is Because I'm Awesome by the Dolly Rots. That's my song. What makes movement more fun? I have been in so many moments in my life where I'm like, man, a song comes on, my kids grab my hand, and I start moving because they want me to, right? But find that internal meaning for you. All right, so this is a live action shot of me this morning running. And for those of you in the audience that can't see, it's a majestic unicorn frolicking with a hot mess on the inside that still looks fantastic, right? That is where it comes down to it. So my colleague that you may have seen, Annie Laurie Cadmus, one day I came in from running, and she was like, Jenn, look at you, you're a runner. And I was like, hold up, no, I'm not. Nopey nope, Annie Laurie. I know what runners are, and I'm not one. She's like, Jenn, how far did you run today? I don't know, like 4.5 miles. She's like, that's a runner, Jenn. Just because you stopped running doesn't mean you're no longer a runner. But we have these ideas of what things are. If I walked out on the street and asked a 3-year-old little girl, are you a dancer? Are you a gymnast? Are you the best hopscotcher ever? They're gonna say yes. Can you show me how you run? They're gonna run like this. They're gonna jump like this, right? They have no problem owning that. So what I need you to do is rewrite that script in your head. I need you to rewrite it because I am a mover. Reclaim those words. I'm an athlete. I'm a skater. Oh, I missed the best one. I'm a twerker was one of them. I'm a dancer. I'm a runner. I'm a unicorn. So we have an interactive moment here. My helpful moderator has put in the chat a word cloud that I'm going to transition to so we can all see it. And what I want you to put in there is the I am. So you're going to use the code to join. You can join either by you can join from a phone, just type in the Metameter. It's in the chat. And then I didn't limit you on this, so feel free to keep going. I'm hoping it pops up. I'm hoping I don't have to log in. Because, all right. Oh. You can see the pop-up, but can you see the question and answer? Bear with me for 1 second. This was really good, I promise. It's going to be good regardless, and we can skip this and you can see what else is there. That's okay. I'll move to the next question because I like it too. So I believe that you all would have put fantastic mover things in there, whatever you are, how you like to move, and it would have populated beautifully. The next one, I have a pretty strong feeling that I understand how you're gonna answer this one too. I move my body because, and this is gonna help us dismantle some stuff here in a minute. So your options are, I love it, it's good for me, I feel guilt or shame if I don't do it, I don't move my body, but I know I should, or sleep counts as movement, right? Night toss and turn all night, I mean, that counts, right? But knowing that you, if the sessions had been breakout sessions, would have chosen mine for a reason, like maybe you thought this would be helpful, I'm assuming that most of you would put, it's good for me, I feel guilt or shame. So let's unpack that a little bit, friends. Let's unpack that. I think I'm gonna have to switch back real quick. Here we go. Listen, don't should on yourself. Stop it. Don't should on yourself, don't should on anyone else. We don't need any of that. It's gross, it's messy, and we need to stop it. It's like apologizing, just cut it out. You're a grown-up, you get to make your own choices. So the whole, I should have exercised today, my question is always, well, it sounds like something else was more important to you. Like, what did you do instead? Did you take a nap? Because your body probably really needed that. Like, wow. Stop it. Either do it or don't do it, right? And acknowledge what you did do. If you spent all day running from grocery store to grocery store to grocery store, that counts. Like, you probably don't need to then go run a marathon afterwards, right? Acknowledge what you do and stop shitting on yourself. It's gross. All right, the other thing that we need to do is we need to shift to problem solving. So the idea is that I want to exercise. I want to move my body more. I know it makes me feel good. It helps me be a better person. My friends do it, right? I'm gonna move more. So now the shift is, how am I gonna make that happen? Listen, you only stick your face in someone's armpit so many times. It's a roller derby picture for those of you. You only do that so many times before you figure it out and you don't do it anymore because it's not fun. And you start thinking like, I wonder if I lick her, if she would like let me get by. I'm not allowed to bite her. That's definitely not allowed. But like, what else can I do, right? And when we're thinking about shifting problem solving, no idea is a bad idea. Don't limit yourself. Can I crawl under her? Can I hop over her? Where are my friends at? Right? Same thing applies. I don't have any time in my day. Where can I put time? Where can I add time? Where can I do movement that's already carved out? I'm already stuck here. I'm gonna move around a little bit, right? But Jen, listen. You already brought your butt. I don't need more of it, all right? So no more but Jens. But Jens, we're gonna go to strategies. I don't have any time. Biggest thing here, schedule yourself first. Stop putting everybody else before you. Schedule your time, make it non-negotiable. How many of you have meetings? You have this meeting, you've prepped for it, you've prepared for it, you are gonna rock this meeting, and then someone emails you and says, hey, that time's not gonna work for me. Can I shift that to Thursday? You're like, sure, my life's your life, go right ahead. It's non-negotiable. Put it in whatever on your calendar that makes you, one, excited to do it, make it private, or put it in something that you know someone would never ask you to move. Schedule you first. Small bursts count. If you have pain, please see your doctor or physical therapist. I hate going to the doctor with pain. It makes me feel like weakness, and then I have to think, no, it doesn't. Your body's not 20 anymore. You're not 6 years old. You're not as bendy as you used to be, Jen. It's okay, go seek help. Short and small, ease into it. Can't decide or don't know what to do? Ask for help. Flip a coin. Just do. Stop beating yourself up for it. Get a trainer. Shop that out. Like, give that to someone else that's excited about making a decision for you. It's too expensive? Guess what? I got this for free. Just goes with me everywhere I do. Your body is free. Move it. Move it. But Jenn, what about the children? Lock them in a closet. Don't lock them in a closet. That's not my advice. When I did roller derby in Ithaca, I worked at Cornell University full-time. I had a part-time gig as a swim instructor, and I did roller derby. My husband was a stay-at-home dad. He had to work part-time to help cover the bills. I asked a friend, this dear soul, I owe people the time and world, because my dear friend would come over so I could go to roller derby practice and watch my kids for free. I said, please help me. This is really important. I'm a better mom when I work. I'm a better mom when I do roller derby. Please help me. And you know what she did? She loved it. My kids had another fantastic human being in their life that loved them, cared for them, and that they felt safe. They were littles. When it comes down to no support, I understand some people don't like when you become a better person. I get that. I don't understand those people, but I understand they exist. So what are we going to do about that? Seek others. Get online. We exist. We're out here. You don't have to be as good. There's like enough space for your awesomeness to join ours, and we'd love for you to be here with us. Fantastic. Maybe you have lack of leisure time, because this is real and this is not the stuff we talk about. At one point in time, I worked retail and as a waitress. I was on my feet all day long. Probably if Fitbits were cool back in 2004 or existed, I probably would have had, 30,000 steps a day easy. You know what I needed? A break. I needed a nap. I didn't need another thing. But let's say I did. Maybe my legs were looking great, even though it's not about legs. My legs always look great, but they were looking exceptionally good that day. Maybe I use a counter and I do some push-ups. Right? Maybe while I'm cooking dinner, I do some dancing, right? Like I put on my music and I dance it out. I am known, like at any given time, I will grab my husband and we will do some dancing. No music needed. We've got the rhythm inside, and my kids are like, oh, that's gross. And I'm like, you want to join? There's room for another. Right? Like break out of thinking that things have to be done a certain way. But something is better than nothing. And if you've walked all day and you don't have time for another thing, listen to your body and rest. Remember, sleep counts. The last one on here are childhood experiences. And as a person that's been an athlete all of my life, my degrees are in exercise physiology, the idea of people not moving or having bad experiences is kind of foreign to me. But I know they exist. Again, I know they exist. So what do you do about that, right? You had this coach that told you weren't good enough, that you weren't small enough, that you weren't strong enough, that you weren't fast enough. They punished you all of the time through physical activity. Like, what do you do about that? I've got a couple things. One, I think you should seek out a therapist to help you unpack that. Like, in my opinion right now, everybody should have a therapist on the ready to call up anytime. Right? We all got stuff we need to sort through from someone that honors our story and doesn't love us too much. Because sometimes the people that love us too much, they try to help too hard, right? And they don't have the skill set to help you work through those things. So that's my first thing. Second is to reevaluate and retell that story yourself. That's your story. So if you were told that you weren't strong enough, fast enough, you use that as punishment, recognize that even though that grown-up didn't know what they were doing and made me run, I was a better soccer player because of that. No, not because of that. In spite of that, I now know how to move my body differently, right? Retell that story to make it your own. Also, experiment, right? As grown-ups, we get nervous, right? We teach kids how to walk. Well, no, they actually learn that all by themselves, and we never discourage them from doing that. They just learn that by watching. But you have to teach them how to hop, how to skip, how to throw, how to catch, how to pass. Like all of those things are skills that we're taught to do. You can try it out. Like what feels good? What feels safe? And start there and then experiment. I feel like women sometimes we feel like if we're gonna try something, we have to commit. Dabbling's a thing. Dabbling's okay. I love when people want to talk roller derby. Do I think that just because you want to talk roller derby with me that you have a lifelong investment in roller derby? No, but I'd love for you to come to a practice and watch us. I'd love to go to an open roller skate at Dow's with you. Please open back up, life. So experiment, try new things. Does this feel okay? Does this feel okay? Move your body, see what will happen. So if that wasn't enough for you, here are some other benefits to movement. There are physical benefits: increased energy, better sleep, more strength, more stamina. I could use some better sleep. Mental, increased creativity. Increased mental energy decreases stress, depression, anxiety. Emotional, Jenn touched on this: improved self-esteem, improved self-confidence, enhanced mood. Right? Like Jenn, I try to move every day. Like I need to run. I've learned that I need something intense. As an extrovert, I have so much extra energy in me. I've got to get it out so I can think, so I can process. Otherwise, things are just running around up there. That magical unicorn is just working way too hard. I'm like a border collie. Really, I need to be let out for a good run, and then I can be your best friend, right? Understand who you are. For others, they need it to increase their energy, right? When you're sick, you just feel like not moving, but sometimes if you go for a little walk outside, it might make you feel better, right? Okay, so let's put it all together as we wrap up, and then I think I'll have just a few minutes for Q&A. So, the movements that support my values. This is like the whole presentation wrapped up. I am insert the kind of mover you are. My barriers are this. Make them real, make them specific, and this list does not need to be very long. My strategies I will use to overcome them include these things. Additional benefits I will experience are, and today I will move my body because, boom, I move like a girl, right? Reframe. I believe in you. I have more confidence than I know what to do with, and I am happy to share it with you. I believe in you when you don't, because I know there's something in you. Let me hold that fear for you. Let me hold that lack of confidence. Go out there and try. That's all I'm asking. Just move a little bit more. So I have time for Q&As, and I thought I'd show one more photo of me. This is how invested in movement I am. My husband and I, after we got married at the courthouse, we had a super small wedding. We decided to go to Knoxville's open ice rink in the middle of the square, and I ice skated. So this is a practice session to make sure I actually knew how to ice skate, because I hadn't ice skated in like a decade. So feel free to reach out to me, and I will take questions. I think we have a few minutes to ask any questions that you might have.
While the stream gets caught up, is there any questions from the small audience we have here?
Oh, fantastic. We have 5 minutes for Q&A. Even if you're like Jenn, I don't even know what to do. Like, that's a question you can type in there, and I love problem solving. So like, yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, thank you for asking clarity on that. So the question was around stop shooting on yourself, and kind of like confidence, like it doesn't quite work as easy as I suggest to just stop it. My first strategy for those of you that can't get beyond I should have ran today, I should have ran faster, I should have ran farther. My first step is to recognize what you did do, right? And what did you choose to prioritize over that, right? Like I chose, so I didn't run as far as I would have liked this morning, for example. But I knew I wanted to run so I could bring my best self to this presentation, right? So I did what I did, and I'm really glad I got it in, right? The day isn't over either, right? So if you think, man, I should have ran this morning, goodness gracious, the whole day's shot now. I mean, just time. That's right. That's what happens. Right? There's just time. Reprioritize it. Okay, I didn't run today. I want to run. Again, Jen, this is really important to me because I need to get this energy out, and I know that the rest of my day will be better. I'm going to do it this time. It's now non-negotiable. Reinvest that time, reprioritize yourself. Don't wait, because what happens is that spiral, right? It's just that cloud that drags along with you all day. Make a decision, reinvest, and remind yourself of why it's important, right? Cool, thank you, great question, yeah.
Yes, we had another question from Hallie. She said, how can we teach our kids to be body positive starting really young?
Yeah, first is you are an example. Right? Like that's first and foremost, you're an example. Listen to your language. Language is really important. So if you're like, oh man, I look fat in these pants today, like reframe that. Like if you hear yourself doing it, stop it immediately, reframe it. And I think also looking at ways that we can talk to our young people about some more than just their bodies, but when we talk about their bodies, they're not just cute, little, small. They're strong, they're powerful, they're adaptable. Like there are lots of words that we can use to describe particularly young women's bodies that are really important. But I think exposing them to other people that have positive body language and movement patterns. So, and if you find them moving their bodies in ways that get them excited or proud, like I feel like with little kids, you can see when they're proud of themselves. Reinforce that. Like, I really liked what you did. How did that feel for you? Right? Be curious about their bodies because they have a totally different perspective about bodies. They haven't had the society banging in on them for their whole lives yet. Well, they have. It's just not as long, right? Any other questions? And the last thing I want to leave with, just because these lights are hot and I'm a sweaty mess, is embrace the things that are. I'm a sweaty mess. I'm a sweater. I just start moving and I just melt. And that's okay, right? Like, you can't clog all the pores. I'd like my body to be able to breathe. So reframing everything that you think, you've got a lifetime of society telling you one thing, but you know about you better than anybody else. Own that. Own that in a positive way. Thank you so much for your time. What do you
my name is Jenn. I am a Ohio University student studying computer science. I work at WellWorks as a personal trainer. And my job as a personal trainer is to meet people wherever they are in their fitness journey and ensure they have the tools and techniques that they need to get where they want to go. Join me now for some quick, low-impact exercises. So for this one, you're going to do 15 rotations, rest 5 seconds, and repeat for 3 total sets. Direction is not specific, so you can rotate forwards or backwards, whichever one feels better to you. Really focus on opening up the shoulder, squeezing the shoulders at the top up to the ears, and a slow movement and rotation throughout. You will perform this exercise in 3 sets of 10 on, 10 off, or 10 seconds work, 10 seconds rest. If for some reason you can't do a regular jumping jack, or just don't feel like it, 2 alternatives are the split jack, where your legs are moving forward and back instead of out and in, and the side step jack, where you simply step out and remove the bounce. This is great if you don't think that your knees can handle the impact of jumping. Moving on, we're going to do a side lunge. For this one, do 10 reps each leg, rest 10 seconds, twice, for a total of 2 sets. You also can complete the reps in order, or alternate legs as shown here. Go as low as is comfortable while still maintaining good stability and a straight back. Here's a view from the side. Notice how I'm keeping my foot flat on the ground and keeping my center of gravity over the center of my foot. Those 2 details will give you perfect functional form and great stability. Next up is the bent over twist. Go 10 on, 10 off, 3 times for a total of 3 sets. The big pointer for this one is to try and keep a straight line from hand to hand. Now granted, if you don't have the best flexibility like me, keeping your arms in line when you go down is going to be pretty tough. So if it's a little off, don't sweat it. Just focus on opening up the core and stretching the lower back. Awesome work! If you'd like to see my full video, along with a whole library of on-demand WellWorks content, visit our member portal page. And if you'd like a personal trainer like myself, feel free to fill out the personal trainer request form on the former. Life's a journey. Let us help you get there.
It's my honor to represent Hocking Valley Bank as today's ticketing sponsor. As women, we face unique challenges. Add a pandemic, and it can seem overwhelming. We hope today allows you to draw strength from the women you're about to hear from, because what I know for sure is it's women who will change the world.
At Ohio Health, we'd like to remind you that the health issues you faced before the pandemic haven't just gone away. That cancer screening you needed, well, you still need it. Your bad knee's not going to replace itself. And when life as you know it stopped, your medical needs didn't. It's time to take back your health safely. And just like always, Ohio Health is here to help you do it. Visit ohiohealth.com to find out more.
Good afternoon. I'm Sydney Weber, Director of Marketing and Communications for Ohio Health and a proud Athens County resident. I want to start by thanking the Athens Chamber for hosting this event again, even virtually. Every year, you continue to bring women of this community together to share and learn from each other, and I think we all appreciate that. Thank you, Dani and Dawn, amazing planning committee. You are rock stars under pressure. The speakers this morning were incredible, and I hope you get a chance to take a look at the chat and see the love. So I get the honor of introducing our keynote speaker today, but she probably needs no introduction, Jenny Stotts. Jenny will be talking about the art of doing it all, and will share the traits and habits of highly effective and efficient people. She's also going to break down some of the strategies so that we all can adapt and incorporate them into our lives. I couldn't think of a better person to tackle that subject. Jenny is a licensed social worker who currently serves as the executive director of the Athens CASA Gal program. She is the regional coordinator for CASA in the Southeast region. Before joining the CASA team, she worked in direct services, child protection, and served as the coordinator for child welfare education, working on regional and statewide projects. She has extensive training and experience in trauma-informed care, child abuse prevention, and response crisis intervention for forensic interviewing. It's very complicated to say. Jenny also serves as the chair of the Southeast Ohio's region's CAPTA-mandated Child Welfare Review Panel and has been elected to CASA's National Leadership Council. She also serves on the advisory board for the Appalachian Children's Coalition. In her spare time, she is a volunteer for Wish Granter for the Make-A-Wish Foundation and a member of the Child Conservation League. She has recently been honored as the Athens County Young Professional for the Year, Southeast Ohio's Community Leader of the Year, and was featured in 5 Under 35 in Ohio. Jenny, for all of you who know this, she is a proud charter member and past president of the Athens Sunshine Rotary, an organization that has done so much to promote community service in our community. So without further ado, I introduce Jenny Stotts. Welcome.
Thank you, Sydney. And wow, thank you everyone who's tuning in. We're gonna have a little bit of fun. So first of all, I would like to extend my thanks and my gratitude to the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce for just getting creative with this event and just finding a way for us to safely be together from afar. What a great team we have and a great local business community to make this possible. So I'm going to be talking to you today about the art of doing it all, but I feel like I need to disclose 3 things. The first, were any of you expecting so many Jenns to be speaking today? Was it intentional? I think it was. So that's the first thing I want to share. Number 2, I want you to keep in mind that I'm hungry. And I require multiple feedings throughout the day, and I'm actually late for my midday feeding, so you just need to bear with me. And third, I'm going to be talking to you about the art of doing it all, but that does not mean that I've got this all figured out. I'm still learning, and for the next 40 minutes or so, we'll just be learning together. So here we go. I'm going to tell you a story. Stop me when it sounds familiar. You're grocery shopping. You're pushing your cart through the aisles, and you have your mask on, of course, you're not a monster. You have your mask on and you're pushing along, and you just have that moment where you're like, so I sanitized the cart, but then I don't think I sanitized my hands because I think I sanitized my hands before I sanitized the cart, and then I touched my face, and then I scratched my eye, and this is just gonna be horrible. So you're going around and you're in the produce section by now. And so you're in the produce section, and you know how they always seem to stack up like the lemons or the apples or the limes in this beautiful pile on a cart? Like everyone's seen this before, this cart. And you gotta be real careful, especially if you have kids, because you pull one out and then they all fall down, and it's super embarrassing, and we just don't know what to do about it. It's embarrassing. So there you are, you're trying not to upset the lemon cart or the lime cart or whatever it is, and then it happens. You look across the cart and you see her. She's a colleague that you haven't seen in a couple of years. So you have that moment where you do that mental jujitsu and you kind of think, well, I have a mask on and I didn't have bangs when I worked with her. She's probably not gonna even recognize me, and I could just pretend that I don't even see her because I don't know how to have an adult conversation in 2020. And so as you're going through this and you're kind of debating back and forth in your mind, you're not sure what to do, then it happens. You lock eye contact. Shit. Okay, we're in this, we've made the social contract, we're doing it, I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna say hi. So I wheel my cart over and I say, hi! And then I'm like, why in the hell is my voice so high? This is not how I talk, but I'm just nervous. And then she looks at you and says, so how have you been? And you very proudly say, oh, I have been so busy. So busy. I don't know who needs to hear this, but there is no award for being the busiest person on the planet. No award. So I get that there are times when you are so busy and so overwhelmed and you have a lot of balls in the air. But if that state of busyness, that state of being overwhelmed has somehow become your default, well, friends, I invite you to spend the next 45, 50 minutes with me just taking inventory. Just take some inventory, maybe reprioritize, maybe just listen and say, you know what, Jenny doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm gonna keep doing me. That's fine too. So some years ago, I found myself saying pretty often that I needed a vacation. And it wasn't just I needed a vacation, it was I need a vacation. Come on, we don't spend the whole of our lives on vacation. I probably, like many of you, earn a couple of weeks of vacation every year. So if I restrict myself to only feel joy and only have that fulfillment during those few weeks of vacation, what kind of life is that? So much of what motivated me to learn about and implement into practice these tactics for efficiency and effectiveness and productivity actually stemmed from this desire to build into my everyday life the feelings of peace and contentment that I felt on vacation. I don't want to lead a life that I feel like I have to escape from. So instead, my family goes on adventures. And I know what you're thinking, Jenny, adventure's just another word for vacation. We saw what you did there. But it feels intentional to me because I can actually think that I'm gonna just go explore the world. I'm going on an adventure. I'm changing my perspective, right? I just wanna do a change of scenery, and that feels like a choice. And it doesn't feel like I'm just trying to escape the life that I lead 51 weeks a year. So I share this story with you because it's really the reason that I developed more efficient, more productive habits. And I wish I could say that it was because I'm just such a good person. I'm just such a good person and I care about my work so much that I just wanted to do it more efficiently. That's not true, but it really is because I do my best work when I strike a peaceful balance across all aspects of my life. So for the rest of our time together, I want to talk to you about the art of doing it all. I want to lift the curtain on the top tips of a highly efficient and highly effective people. And I hope that it will either validate you, inspire you, or motivate you. I certainly hope that it won't bore you. So here we go. Everyone ready? Here we go. The first lesson in the art of doing it all is don't do it all. There, I said it. I gave away the punchline. Highly productive people are really, really good at not doing things. And this doesn't feel right in our bellies somewhere, right? Because when we observe people who seem to be really productive and really efficient, they seem to do lots of things. They're everywhere. But the real measure is all the things that they don't do. So what I'm really saying is make sure that your yeses are yeses. Your word and your commitment are your most valuable assets. So condition your yeses to be yeses in bold-faced lettering. So when you're asked to volunteer, or you're asked to take on a project, or you're even just asked to meet someone for lunch, think about the magnitude of that yes and be stingy with it. Don't give it away if you can't commit. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't times when you have to cancel, your plans change, you have to reschedule, or you might even have to pull out of something completely. That's okay, we know that. My point is that we need to be honest with ourselves before we say yes, so that canceling later on and missing deadlines, all those things that don't make us feel good, is more of the exception rather than the rule. From a purely efficiency standpoint, canceling and rescheduling all the time, it's just not a good use of our time. And I know everyone listening today, you have a lot of valuable time. Your time is valuable. So imagine if you make a lunch date with a friend for a day that is packed. It's packed with tasks and meetings and phone calls and deadlines. It's like a game of dependability roulette. Like, you don't know what's gonna happen, we're just gonna give it a shot. So you make this plan, and then the day comes, and as predicted, you cannot step away from your desk. It's back-to-back phone calls, back-to-back meetings, deadlines are happening, there's things running through the jungle. It's just really wild. So in the middle of all of that, you have to devote a little bit of your mental energy to canceling on your friends. Text them, call them. Now, they're your friend, so they're gonna understand. They're not gonna be mad at you. They know life is life. But even though you know your friend understands, doesn't it make you feel a little bit bad, a little bit guilty, and maybe even makes you frustrated with all the things that you had to stay at work to do or all those other commitments that you had made? So my lesson here is not avoid making lunch plans. You should definitely be having lunch with your friends. The lesson here is to plan for tasks and meetings and projects to take a little bit longer than expected. Efficient people plan on things going wrong. And I think we've certainly learned that lesson today because we've seen Dani and the team at the Chamber pivot and adjust like nothing I've ever seen. So today's Friday. And let's say that one of you just feels so inspired by all of these words that I've been saying that you reach out to me after this and you say, Jenny, I really want to talk about some of those strategies. And I say, sure, because I'm cool like that. And I say, okay, well, let's look and pick out a date. I say, next week's really busy for me, but how about we meet 2 weeks from today, the Friday after next? And I say that because right now, my schedule looks pretty open on the Friday after next. Why? Because I haven't scheduled it yet. I haven't planned it yet, right? So I know that the Friday of our call is probably going to end up being a little bit busier than it looks right now. So we plan, let's say on a 30-minute video call. We want to do a Zoom call for 30 minutes. And we set our plan to begin at 11 a.m. That's when we're going to meet and talk. When I plan around that meeting, I'm planning for 45 minutes. And I will not schedule anything that has the chance to last past 10:45 a.m. because I don't want to end a call or a meeting with just minutes to spare before I transition to talk to you. I want to make the most of our time together, because if I don't, I might end up wasting those first few minutes with you just to mentally transition, asking you to remind me what it was we were supposed to talk about because I didn't have a chance to check my notes. And that even might lead to our scheduled call extending a little bit longer than we had planned. So that's not good for my day. It's not good for your day. And I don't know about you, but I do not do my best work when I'm rushed or when I'm distracted or I'm stressed out. It just doesn't happen. And I bet that a lot of you are pretty much the same. And when we're feeling rushed and distracted and we have all these things going on and we're feeling that pressure, we're tempted to do something. We're tempted to try to do multiple things at once. So since you brought it up, let's talk about multitasking. I manage a lot of things in my personal and professional life. There are a lot of people who depend on me. As you can tell, I'm quite important. And I know that each of you listening today, you also have a lot of things and a lot of people that depend on you because you're damn important too. So people tell me, and I have a feeling you probably hear this from people too, but they say, oh, you must be really good at multitasking. You're one of those that can do that really good multitasking thing. And I say, no, I'm not, and neither of you. Nobody is good at multitasking. Our brains do not allow us to multitask. In fact, I just think that multitasking is the most ridiculous lie that capitalism has ever told us. It just doesn't make any sense. Even the term multitasking is really, really misleading. We are not completing two tasks at once, which is what our egos want us to believe, that we're doing these two things really well all at the same time. What we're actually doing is rapidly shifting our focus from one task to the other, which means that we're reducing our mental capacity in each task, which means that we are probably reducing our capacity for working memory, and we're increasing our fatigue. Now, there are some exceptions that I do want to explain. I, like many of you, I love to listen to podcasts while I'm cleaning around the house or when I'm mowing the lawn, I'm on the riding mower or something. This works because listening to the podcast requires a different part of our brain than the cleaning or the mowing or whatever it is that I'm doing. So I can do those things. You can all do those things, but one thing that I can't do well, or that not efficiently, is listen to a podcast and try to return emails, because my brain is trying to figure out which words belong with the podcast and which words belong to the email. Now, we can do this. We can move through these things and we can do them. It's not that we can't do them. It's just not good for us to do them over and over and over. And over time, it will affect our working memory, and it does create fatigue. And again, nobody does good work when they're tired or cranky or hungry or any of that. So these are these intentional decisions about my personal work habits. But what about all of those things that pop up unexpectedly and may entice us to try out multitasking, which we know we can't do well? So how many of us, let's be honest here, work on the computer and have a tab or a browser open to our email at the same time, all the time? Right? Guilty party of all of us. We all do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And the other thing, turn off notifications. I don't have any notifications where it's pushing through and disrupting my work, like on my phone, on my watch, on my laptop, on a computer, right? We're all connected to so many different devices. And so don't have those notification settings on if you can. So if I'm writing a report or I'm doing research for my work, and an email pops up, and I get that notification. Now, even if I don't respond to that email, even if I see the notice come up and I'm like, nope, you know what, that's just another ad for Chipotle, I don't need to look at that right now, right? Even if it's not something I have to respond to, it still is dividing my attention. It is splitting my focus. And if that happens over and over and over and over, and we don't even realize this is happening, it's creating fatigue. It's building fatigue, right? So obviously it's inefficient, but this concern about fatigue and working memory is something we should all be paying attention to. How many of us have ever walked into a room and then you have to walk out of the room because you don't remember why you walked into the room? That's working memory, right? I do this a lot where I'll be scrolling social media and I'll come across some celebrity, a little tidbit about a celebrity, and I want to know more about it. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to get off the social media and get into a web browser because I want to Google that person. So I open up the web browser, and then I'm like, what was it I was Googling again? I don't remember. I mean, come on, I'm not the only one that does that. I think I'm among friends here. So don't do that. And doing it every once in a while is not a big deal. But make this a habit, and it becomes your standard work routine. It's not going to help you in the long run. And schedule time for deep work. So I know some of you probably have to be accessible through your jobs. You have to respond to emails or phone calls right away. I get that. But schedule time for deep work, which is really focused work. So for me, my deep work is writing. I have to be really intentional and deliberate when it comes to writing. I have to kind of almost make myself unreachable because I need to focus on that time without distractions. Now, how many of you are thinking, Jenny, you've got it all wrong. It's not the notifications that distract me. It's my own freaking mind because I'm sitting there and then I think of something and then I think of something else and then I Google it and then I think of something else. I learned something really groundbreaking about a stapler the other day and it diverted my entire work. I made a video about it, what I learned about the stapler, and I sent it to my coworkers. And what was I supposed to be doing then? I certainly was not supposed to be making a little 60-second TED talk about how a stapler works, but my mind was blown. So how many of us have that happen, where one thing leads to another, and then that leads to another? So I have a trick for this. It's a trick that I love. And so when I'm doing my deep work, I always have a notebook or a scratch pad or a Post-it just sitting near me, open with it, have it open with there. That way I can just jot down those thoughts, those ideas that come up, just jot them down. I actually call it my distraction list. That way I can reattend to them later. So rather than beat yourself up for your mind traveling a little bit or your mind wandering, embrace it. Create space for it. And take it easy on yourself. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And so this brings me to another point, and it's recovery. Recovery is essential for resilience, and a lot of the practices that I'm talking about right now have to do with resilience and pathways to resilience. The human brain requires recovery every 60 to 90 minutes. So let's think about this. I'm going to tell you another story. Stop me when it sounds familiar. You've had a packed day. You went from meeting to meeting to meeting, deadline to deadline to deadline. You got so much accomplished. You met all your deadlines. You even caught up with all your outstanding emails, the ones that you were going to get to later, all those ones. You were a rock star. You powered through. And as you were powering through your day, you thought to yourself, when I get home, I'm so productive. I'm so motivated and inspired by how productive I've been. When I get home, I'm going to finish out those thank you notes from 6 months ago that I need to write and get in the mail. I'm going to do that tonight. And I'm probably going to make a really healthy dinner because I went to the farmer's market and it's getting a little weird that I have to keep throwing away all my fresh produce because I don't have time to cook it. So you're going to do all these things. You're going to get caught up on the laundry. So you get home. You walk into the door. You've powered through all day long. Like you've been a badass all day long. You get home. You walk into the door and you drop your bag. But it's like you don't just drop your bag. You like you shrug your bag off of you. And then you go slip into some comfy sweatpants, and then you throw a frozen pizza in the oven, and then you go sink into the couch with a glass of wine, and you binge watch a TV show for hours. Right? So, I know, it's like I'm seeing into your soul. I hope people feel seen and validated right now. I hope that. So this sounds familiar. What happened? We didn't seek recovery, so you crashed. So that's what happens. Or if you're like my child, which those of you watching from YouTube can see on the screen right now, if you're like my child, you settle down into the giant dog bed with your giant dog and a cat. So that's how you crash. Now, this is going to happen sometimes. And I am certainly not bad-mouthing pizza, frozen pizza, wine, TV show binging. I'm not bad-mouthing any of those things. It's 2020. We have needed those things for our survival. Like, come on. I'm not going to bad-mouth those things. But if this becomes our norm, and this is how our daily lives look, week after week, month after month, year after year, you might start to feel a little disappointed. a little disappointed in yourself because you aren't eating healthy enough, for example. You may start to feel down on yourself because you're not doing anything useful in your personal time, you feel. You might wake up each morning feeling resentful even, that you didn't get to the laundry or the dishes or whatever the night before. And then what? Well, you're probably going to conclude that you have not been taking the time to recharge and recover throughout each workday, and you are suffering from the neurological blowback of those bad habits. No, nobody's gonna think that. Instead, when you sink into the couch or you rip open that frozen pizza box, or when you wake up the next day with all that resentment about the laundry and the dishes, you're going to think, my job is sucking the life out of me. It is consuming all of my energy. And then you're probably gonna think, ugh, I need a vacation. And the cycle continues. So set an intention to build recovery time into your day. Every 60 to 90 minutes, every single day. Now, I would love it if that meant that we could all take an hour-long meditation break about 5 times a day. But I kind of have a feeling that our bosses and our families might have something to say about that. So what I'm talking about is a 3 to 5 minute break. Take a walk, get a drink of water, check in on social media, text your friend and get a kind of midday girlfriend pickup or whatever. You could even just sit at your desk for a couple minutes or in your chair, sit there for a couple minutes and just close your eyes and relax. And then you take a breath, you exhale, and you get back to work. Now, for some of you that are thinking, all right, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do this on Monday. And you go on Monday and you take your breaks and then you still crash at the end of the day, please don't call me and complain because you didn't get here in just one day. So commit to 4 weeks of really working at it, of really investing in that time for you to seek recovery. So imagine if I went to the gym one day and I did a sit-up. And then I'm looking down and I'm like, where are the abs? I feel like I signed up for the Killer Abs program and I did the sit-up and there's not one there. But if I committed to doing 20 crunches every day for an entire month, I probably have a pretty damn good start on those killer abs that I was hoping for. So you have to kind of keep doing this over and over and over and over, right? That's how our bodies and our brains adapt to new changes in our behavior. And if you're a boss or a leader or a manager and you're listening right now, practice this for yourself, but set it as an expectation for your team. I promise you will have higher rates of productivity and better job satisfaction. And the investment is so small, right? It's maybe a total of 20 minutes throughout the day that you're asking people to seek recovery and to do this. It's a small investment, but the return is really infinite. So quick poll, who has ever procrastinated? And who's gonna think about that and get back to me next week? And if you're one of the ones who's never procrastinated, like you don't do that, you're like, Jenny, I do not procrastinate, stop slamming me, come on. So if you could just maybe think about a friend who procrastinates a lot and just apply what I'm gonna say to that. You can just think about your friend, it'll be okay, nobody's gonna know. So I know that we have all put off something or avoided something at some point in our lives. We've all done it. So let's talk about that. Even those of us who are ever punctual and who never miss a deadline. I'm one of those early people. I'm a morning person. It's annoying as heck to my family. They really don't like it about me because I wake up in the morning and I'm like, good morning, time to start the day. And they're like, Mom, stop. This is terrible, stop. Like dial it down, dial it down, dial it down. And so I just say, it's such a good morning. I'm so annoying, I know it. I understand it. So I also tend to show up to things really early, like awkwardly early. Like I get there and then I'm like, it'd be really awkward if I showed up this early because, it starts in 1 hour and 15 minutes. So I'm just gonna wait in my car for a half an hour. That way I only walk in 45 minutes early and that'll be less awkward. So even me who someone is ridiculously punctual, we still have moments where we save the difficult, challenging things to the last minute. We've all done that. And here's why. When we think about things that we need to do, those heavy tasks tend to sink down to the bottom of our lists, right? We're creatures of habit, and what we'll do is we'll put our easier tasks, those things that are just so easy, we could do them in our sleep, we put those at the top. Because we are creatures of habit and we crave positive feedback. even if that positive feedback comes from within. Think about it. Times when you've kind of checked off everything on your list, it feels so good. It feels great. You like give yourself a little pat on the back. You're like, look at me, checking everything off, feeling really good. So when we're looking at a list or a pile of things that we need to do, we tend to put those small tasks right at the top. And we kind of have this mistaken belief that if we can just accomplish those small tasks, it'll kind of make us feel motivated to accomplish those more difficult things, right? We all do that. So I have a trick for that. And my trick is when you're looking at something heavy, when you're looking at something really big, a big task, what I want you to do is just break that down into smaller pieces. So for me in my work, the heavy task that I tend to avoid is grant writing applications, like writing those grant applications. I have a lot to say about our work, and I think that the work that my agency does is really inspiring, and I get really excited about it. But it feels heavy to me because I know that my agency's future depends, at least in part, by me doing a good job at this. So they feel heavy, and they tend to sink to the bottom of every to-do list I write. And I kind of, I can let them continue to be the thing that I'll do when I finish all of my other work so that I can focus without the distraction of all of that other work. These are just lies I tell myself, because the other work is never going to stop. There will always be reports and emails and meetings disrupting that thing that I'm avoiding. So I break down my biggest projects into smaller and easier tasks. You can do this. So rather than saying, I'm going to write that grant application today, and then I just sit there and quiver. I'm like, you know what, I think I need a coffee. I'm just going to go get a coffee now. You know what, I think that I need to reorganize the Post-its. That seems like that's really important. I'm going to do that now, right? And then I'm kind of, no, I'm getting so much done. And then I end the day, and I'm like, oh, I didn't do that thing because I had so much other stuff to do, right? We all do this. I'm not the only person who does this. So let's say I break that down and I say, okay, I'm going to work on this grant application. And in the morning, I'm going to write my budget computation. In the afternoon, I'm going to write my budget narrative. And tomorrow, I'm going to work on projected outcomes, and so on and so on. This is my favorite trick for accomplishing those big tasks. Break them down into smaller things that you can get a hold of and that you can move forward with. So there are lots of theories and methods for kind of organizing and prioritizing. One that I really like is actually known as the Eisenhower method or the Eisenhower matrix. Some of you are probably really familiar with it. It basically lays out, President Eisenhower had this way of laying out and organizing problems or work into 4 quadrants. And they're kind of in this 4-part grid. So the first were items that were classified as important and urgent. He did those first. And the second fell into the category of important but not urgent. So those were planned out for later. The third was tasks that were not important, but they were urgent, so he delegated those. And then the fourth were those tasks that were neither important nor urgent, so he eliminated those. So other people use variations or versions of that matrix. I particularly like to use this one because, especially in my workplace. So I work for a small agency, and each of us, we all wear many, many hats. And so it's a great way to figure out what do I need to tackle right now? And what are the things that I can pull my coworkers into so that we can work on these things together? Or what things do I maybe need to pass off? So another great trick, particularly if you're a list person, is to create a master list and a to-do list. So your master list could be for the year, it could be for the month, it could be for the week, it could be for the quarter of the year, whatever. You can even have more than one master list. You could have sections of your master list if you really like to organize things. I envision it being color-coded, but I mean, yours could look like whatever, but I would imagine it being color-coded if you're asking for my advice. So you break those items down into smaller tasks, smaller things that you can do and that you can accomplish. And also on that to-do list are kind of those things that just come up throughout the week or throughout the day. So, and if you don't like to call them lists, or if you don't like that terminology that feels restrictive, maybe think of it as like an area of focus. So an example here from my own life is I've been practicing yoga for about 15 years. And when I first started, right, I know I look like a yoga person, I feel like. I don't know what they look like, but I feel like I look like one. So I've been practicing yoga, and when I first started doing it, I was really, really into like the physical challenge of it. It was all about the workout. I loved signing up for power yoga, like the kind where you leave and you're like, I'm not relaxed. I feel really intense. I could punch a wall right now. I'm so strong. So I'd sign up for all these really intense classes. And then over the time, when I got older and matured slightly, it really became more about the clarity that I was getting from that practice and less about kind of the challenge, the physical challenge of it all. So a couple years ago, I had started kind of thinking I wanted to learn more about yoga. I wanted to learn more about the discipline. Why was it so effective? What was the mechanism behind this practice? And so that would, I want to learn more about yoga. That would be on my master list, like a goal or an intention. Now, I didn't just say I would just want to become a guru all of a sudden, right? That'd be huge. That'd be a huge thing. That wasn't what I was wanting to do. So instead, it started out, I just started reading some books about the history of yoga. And then I really wanted to learn about the anatomy of what I was doing with my body and why it was working and why it felt the way it did. So I completed yoga teacher training. Now, I don't teach yoga, but learning about those things helped me move the needle in that bigger goal that I had. So it was kind of on my master list. So when I kind of broke that down into these smaller pieces that I could actually achieve. So I've been kind of painstakingly describing these decisions, right? I'm really breaking them down and really articulating them, and I'm using really, really big words like task. It's huge, right? That just sounds so official, task. So that doesn't mean that any of these things actually have to be written down. And it doesn't mean that you have to kind of neurotically or obsessively plan every single part of your life and your time. It's quite the opposite, actually. It's really about conditioning yourself and just giving yourself permission to think about how you might move in the direction of those goals. It's kind of like wanting to learn a new language. You might say often, I really want to learn French or Spanish or Mandarin. And then years and years go by and you're visiting Spain and you think, I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I just never got around to it. I never had time. So what I'm suggesting is that you give yourself permission to set goals for the long game, but give yourself permission to make a little bit of progress in the right direction without it feeling like a failure. Or without becoming overwhelmed and saying, my work is so busy right now, my kids are involved in so much, I don't possibly have time to learn another language. Break that down, because when you think, if you're just thinking in terms of 2 steps, don't speak any Spanish, don't speak any French, to being fluent in either of those languages, that's really, really big. So it's okay to break that down into smaller things that you can achieve. So if you want to learn Spanish, for example, maybe for you, the first step is just watching some Latino television when you're folding laundry. Maybe the first step for you is downloading an app on your phone so that you can learn some new vocabulary when you're commuting back and forth to work. Maybe it's enrolling in a course. It is okay if you aren't fluent after that first step. You're just moving in that direction. And it's okay if you're in that space for a long time. Forward is forward, my friends. So I'm tired. I don't know if anyone else is tired, but how many of you are so exhausted sometimes that you don't want to make another single decision? Like, you had such a big day, and at the end of the day, you get home, and my kids are like, hey, can I have a glass of water? And I'm like, I don't know. I just can't make any more decisions. If you want the glass of water, just do it. I just don't want to have to make this decision. It's just so much. You're worn out. I'm actually pretty sure this is exactly how those dinner kits, those things that you can sign up for, they're really expensive, and you get a meal delivered or several meals delivered to you each week. I think that's why those became so popular, because we are so exhausted, we don't want to have to make another decision. Think about any diet regimen or fad diet. A lot of times they have meal planning as a part of them, right? So not having to think about what I'm going to feed my family, it feels like a vacation from the day. It kind of feels like this respite. So I watched this interview years ago, and it was when then President Barack Obama said that he was always seen wearing blue or white shirts, and he was talking about it, and he said he intentionally had eliminated all the other colors from his wardrobe. And he said something to the effect of, I make so many decisions every day, I don't want to waste one on what I'm going to wear. So I'm probably never going to limit myself like President Obama with my wardrobe, but it does make me think about opportunities that I have to automate some decisions, to kind of automate those decisions, either through pre-planning or through delegating. So my husband and I don't know if he is, we'll see this later, but my husband and I both tend to be very uninspired. He more so than me, because I think I'm a little bit better at this than he is. But when it comes to throwing together weeknight meals, like, we're just really bad at it. We're usually in a hurry. We're both tired, and all these things are kind of going on. And I think, especially for us as women right now, there's a lot of decisions that we have to make, right? We're making medical decisions. We're making safety decisions for our families. We're making decisions about school. We're making decisions about work. And we're trying to do all of this with a smile on our face because that's what the world says we should do. So it's hard. So back to my husband and I, but mostly my husband, being really uninspired about these weeknight meals. So we get around this. The kind of little trick that we've come up with is when we're getting ready to go grocery shopping on the weekends, we kind of come up with some ideas for meals 3 to 5 because, again, we plan for things to go wrong. So we know that we're probably not going to eat at home all 5 days of the week. There's going to be at least one day where we're getting some sort of takeout or something like that, or maybe 2 days. I mean, come on. So we plan for that to happen. And then we kind of build our shopping list around that. And then I don't have to think about dinner on those weeknights because I have it posted on the fridge, those kind of meal ideas. I know that I have the stuff that I need to make those meals. And it just takes out one extra decision. It just kind of removes one of those Tuesday or Thursday night decisions. And so you can do this too with lots of things. You can automate and delegate some of your decisions, and it just eliminates some of those things later on that, stress us out or bog us down. So as I start to wrap up here a little bit, I want to leave you with a few final tips and an obligatory disclaimer. I hope that during this time that we've been spending talking here, that you have figured out that I'm working on it. I don't always practice what I preach. Some of my best friends might be watching this right now and saying, Jenny, you're sitting up there acting like you don't ever get overwhelmed. We know that's not true. We've seen your text messages. So I'm working on it. I don't always practice what I preach. I don't have everything together. I'm working on it, and I think everyone else is too. So I think we need to give and get that kind of grace from one another. Now, earlier, I likened recovery and recharging practices with going to the gym. So what I challenge all of you to do moving forward is to work out your brain, stretch your brain a little bit. So there's lots and lots of ways to do this, and you'll find something that works for you. And I think, settling into the pandemic and kind of getting used to life looking a little bit different right now, we've all, because we've had so much time on our hands, have gotten a little bit better at finding things that, to kind of occupy our time and keep our brains busy. So for me, it's puzzles. I never knew how much I loved puzzles. It's like the answer to every question I never knew I had. I really love these puzzles. And so I'm doing them all the time. And there for a while, they were kind of hard to get. It's like everybody was doing puzzles, so I was trading puzzles with people. I love it. Absolutely love it. I love the stillness of it. I love that I can have faith that it'll eventually work out. And I love that it kind of forces me to be patient, because patience is not something that I have in great supply. It's not one of my finer personal qualities. So I love it. It's such a good workout for my brain. My husband, on the other hand, hates it. He's so agitated by the puzzles. Every once in a while, he'll walk by me and he'll try to sit down and do the puzzle, and then he's just agitated and he needs to walk away. But he kind of challenges himself in a different way. If things in our house break down or aren't working correctly, my husband is like a handyman detective. He can figure out what's wrong with it and fix it, and he kind of thrives in that space of solving those problems that way. And another example that I think maybe you'll relate to is reading. So I love reading, absolutely love it. I can get lost and spend entire days with my nose in a book. I actually kind of have a little rule for myself that I don't take any book into my office with me, because I'm then tempted to just sit and read a book all day. So I leave my books in the car. But I also like to have multiple books going at one time. So there seems to be this rumor that you had to read one book, finish that book, and then you start another book, and then you read that one, and then you start another one. I don't know who came up with that rule, but they're wrong. And if they're smarter than me, I'm sorry that I said you were wrong. But I love to have multiple books going at any time. So I might be reading a book, something academic, something about my work, something professional. And I might be reading that. But at the same time, I might also be reading something about what's going on in the world. I might be reading a book about the history of civil rights or a book about white privilege, something that just kind of informs me and makes me a more informed citizen. So I might be reading that. And then I'm also always reading one of those paperback novels. You know what kind I'm talking about. Like they're the really trashy ones that like you don't want to be seen reading in public. You don't want people to see the cover. So if people walk by and you're reading in the coffee shop or, back when we could go into coffee shops and sit and read, but you'd kind of like hide the cover because you're like a little embarrassed that you'd be seen reading that book. But so I always have one of those going too, and sometimes some other things. I also like to read books more than once. Does anyone else do this? Like you read books more than once? So literature is really interesting because it doesn't change, but we do. So when you reread a book, you see it in such a new way, and that's just such a good brain workout, right? To be challenging yourself to see something different or imagine the characters looking different or sounding different than the way you first envisioned them, right? So find what stimulates your creativity or your critical thinking and save time for it. Please save time for it. And so finally, I do want to leave you with a reminder about self-care. So I'm not talking about pedicures and bubble baths. I'm not knocking them either. Like, I love a good pedicure. I just think that those are really techniques for relaxation. And when I'm talking about self-care, I'm actually talking about your care of self. So I'm talking about eating enough, sleeping enough, getting whatever exercise your body needs, getting out into the sunshine, the actual care of self. And because self-care, it's become kind of sexy here lately. Everybody's talking about self-care. It has its own hashtag on Sundays, and we're Instagramming, like getting a pedicure, self-care. Don't stop those things. Those things are great. Keep doing them. But I really want you to invest in that care of yourself, that basic care of how you make your body and your mind work. Treat yourself as if you were someone that you were responsible for helping. So imagine, on those days where you're, feeling like you can just power through and you don't need to have anything to eat, or on those days where you only slept 2 hours the night before, but you're going to get up at 6 a.m. and still work out, and then you're going to go at 8 a.m. and go into work, and you're going to work a 10-hour day, and then you're going to come home and try and figure out what in the heck you're going to feed your family. So doing all of that. Now, if your friend came to you and was saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do, Jenny, this is what I'm going to do, you would say, don't do that. Take care of yourself. You need to take a nap. You need to rest. Like, just take care of yourself. And, kind of say, relax. So treat yourself as if you were someone that you're responsible for helping. Take that advice that you would give to your friend if they had the same issue that you were having or had the same questions that you were having. Highly effective and highly efficient people don't shortchange themselves on prioritizing their basic needs. Protect the time and energy that you need to reinvest in yourself. It pays off in the long run and in the short run. For you, it pays off for you. It pays off for your work, for the people that you love, and for everything in between. I want to thank you all for spending this time with me. I'm so grateful to be in this kind of a community and be in a community where we can lean on one another and support one another and help build each other up. It was certainly a pleasure and an honor for me to be with everyone today that's listening, wherever you're listening from, hopefully somewhere cozy. And I certainly hope that we can continue to connect. I want to be friends forever. So I'm wishing you and yours a very happy fall. Thank you. And I think I'm ready for questions if there are any. Creativity is happening right now, for those of you that are wondering on the delay, but you can add your questions to the
So I know the first question we're going to have is, what does your shirt mean? There's been some comments going on.
I would love to have a private conversation if anyone wants to know what my shirt says. It has a couple expletives in it, so I'll hold it to myself. But if someone wants to send me a message, I'd be happy to tell you what it means. I know that's such a non-answer. It's so uncool of me. I could, I guess.
Yeah. Dani said sassy redhead swag.
Yeah, I like that.
In case
Okay,
you didn't hear it.
that's what it stands for, that one.
So we have a question from Lindsay. What are your favorite self-care ideas?
So I think really thinking about what your body needs and responding to that. So if it's more movement, like Jenn was saying, or if it's kind of challenging yourself or challenging your perspective, like the other Jenn was saying, or just kind of responding to, if you're tired, let yourself be tired. That's okay. Again, there's no award for always powering through. And we can do that in the short term, but we need to pay attention to, the entire span of our life, and we don't want to live where we're constantly stressed out and constantly powering through. So I'm getting better at, for me, getting better at getting enough sleep. For a long time, I often was drawn to work in the middle of the night. If I couldn't sleep, I kind of turned to work, hoping that would make me a little more tired, but it wouldn't. I would just keep working. So kind of really becoming a little more disciplined with my sleep hygiene and making sure that I'm getting enough sleep. And then I know that this sounds really cliche and really grandmother-ish, but there's just something to be said about drinking enough water, about, just kind of throughout the day. And for me, that feels like a little bit of a break. And it's also kind of a moment to build in those recovery breaks that I was talking about. Now, if we're talking about relaxation, I'm always down for a pedicure, but I also love being out in nature. There's just something as weird as this year has been, it has allowed for me to work from home for a little bit, and I've loved being able to sit outside and get my work done. So I've been really grateful for how beautiful the Southeast Ohio weather has been. We've been pretty fortunate this 2020.
And Hallie says, Jenny, you are a rock star. I appreciate how direct you are with what you need. How do you recommend we take steps towards advocating for what we need to those around us?
I think it starts by admitting that you have those needs, kind of admitting it to yourself and articulating them to yourself, and then talking about it openly. One thing that I've been really pleased and impressed with is that most of the speakers today have talked about therapy, have talked about getting that kind of support. So I think starting to have really open conversations about women's needs, and I think women in particular, and I could be wrong, this is just my own opinion, but women in particular, we tend to focus our attention on the needs of everyone else. So we tend to be kind of scanning around, looking to see, like, are our friends okay? Are our spouses okay? Are our significant others okay? Are our kids okay? Are our coworkers okay? And I think sometimes we need to put up a little bit of a mirror and say, am I okay? And invite people in, right? Invite people in to kind of be checking on one another. And, there's just something about having grace and giving grace. And a mentor of mine would frequently tell me that grace and grit can exist in that same moment. And I think that that's just completely true. So I think having the grace to understand when something is amiss, but having the grit to speak up about it and practice it. You can practice it in the mirror, you can practice it in the car, kind of saying things, practice a conversation with your friends or with your boss or with your coworker and just say, I need a little bit of space today. I need a little bit of attention. I need a little bit of a check-in today. And be willing to do that both ways, I think, is a really great start. And sometimes it's just saying the words. They don't feel good, right? They don't taste very good when we're saying words like that, and we want to know what it means, and we want to have all these thoughts about it. And I think, practicing saying it, and then that way you can say it in front of someone.
Great. Are there any other questions?
Sure. Well, thank you all so much. I am so excited that this event happened, and it didn't happen the way we probably all expected that it would happen in the beginning of 2020. It didn't even happen the way that we all expected it would about 10 hours ago. So I think that says a lot about the grace and grit of the team that pulls this together, and it's in a beautiful place, and is so supported by our community, by our business community, by organizations in our community. So I know I'm incredibly grateful to be here and to have had the chance to be with all of you and all of you that are at home or at your offices. It's truly been an honor, and I want to thank you for spending your morning with us. Thank you.